So I don't know who's in chambers, but Ben Prather was downstairs and can't get up the elevator.
How to get out?
It probably wouldn't be nice to make Steve Moore hobble down and get him.
I don't know if anybody's heard him.
Chris, did you hear that? Chris Ratty?
You guys might need to turn your mic on and say that he's here.
He's here now in chambers.
All right.
Steve, I'll message Dan.
I just did, I think, except for I've been having weird things happen to my electronics.
He's in here.
Maybe.
He's in here.
Be responsive.
Can you hear us?
There it is. Yeah. Who's presenting at the library?
Can they hear us?
Yeah, I'll shoot the text. Okay. All right, are you ready to rock?
I don't know if they can hear us, Mayor.
Actually, Steve Moore was still talking, so maybe he's not even there. Okay, Ben is there. Never mind.
All right. Okay. Everybody, council, we ready?
You ready, Mayor?
All right, I think we are. Okay. Masking off. All right. Good evening, everyone. It is 5:32 p.m., September 14th, 2020, edition of the Moorhead City Council meeting. Call the meeting to order. Madam Clerk, can you please provide a roll call?
Shelley Dahlquist.
Here.
Sarah Watson Curry. Sarah Watson Curry.
Here.
Shelley Carlson.
Here.
Heidi Durand.
Here.
Deb White.
Here.
Larry Seljevold.
Here.
Chuck Hendrickson.
Here.
Steve Lindos.
Here.
And then in chambers, I have City Attorney John Shockley and Acting City Manager Dan Molly and Mayor Jonathan Judd.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you, everyone. Can we please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you, everyone. Good evening, everyone. I'm Mayor Jonathan Judd. The Moorhead City Council is holding its regularly scheduled meeting using virtual meeting technology under an emergency declaration due to COVID-19. I am in City Council chambers along with the acting city manager, the city attorney, city clerk, and a few other staff members. Council members are attending remotely. Any public comment received prior to this meeting will be admitted as a part of the record during the applicable agenda item. The public may participate during the meeting by calling 218-299-5001. Public input will be taken by a staff member and provided to me to read during the meeting, or you may request that your call be bridged to the virtual WebEx meeting and speak directly during our public hearings or citizens addressing the council agenda item. Again, the public comment line is 218-299-5001. If no answer, please leave your message or callback number, and a member of city staff will get back to you as soon as possible. All right, everyone, that moves us to agenda item number 3. Are there any amendments to tonight's agenda? Hearing none, then we'll move to item number 4, consent agenda. Any items that were removed from consent?
No items were removed.
Okay. Hearing none from acting city manager, Madam Clerk, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Lindos moves approval.
Seljevold second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk?
Dahlquist.
Yes.
Watson Curry.
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Durand,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Seldgevold,
Aye.
Hendrickson,
Aye.
Lindos.
Yes.
Motion passes. Move on to item number 5, recognitions, presentations, 5A, an update from Moorhead Public Library and Lake Agassiz Regional Library, and I believe that's Miss Liz Lynch.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yep, sure can. Thank you.
All right, well, Mayor Judd and the council, thank you so much for your time this evening. The last 6 months have been an interesting time for everyone in all industries, but it's been unusual for public libraries as well. This pandemic has really challenged our organization to think outside the box and reinvent services in many ways. We're happy to report that COVID has actually pushed us to introduce new services and programs that have been on our wish list for years. And most importantly, it has pushed us to evaluate our services and focus on how to better meet the needs of our community members. I'm going to attempt to share a slide with you right now. Do all of you see a slide of Lake Agassiz Regional Library? Okay, I see a thumbs up. So this slide on the left-hand side represents the Lake Agassiz Regional Library, which provides public library service to a 7-county service area. Within this service area, we do provide public library service directly to 22 communities with a total population of about 150,000 residents. The Moorhead Public Library is by far the largest library in our region, and our headquarters are located in the lower level of the Moorhead Public Library, which is very convenient, and we do rent that space from the city of Moorhead. Now, on the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see that there are 3 areas that Lake Agassiz Regional Library will be focusing on over the next few years, which includes economic and workforce development, education, and equity. And we're committed to partnering with local career force agencies, schools, and programming entities to work through COVID recovery and do what we do best, which is to give our community members the tools and resources they need to succeed and to help them improve their quality of life. Now, just to give you a snapshot, let's see here. Just to give you a snapshot of what services have been like in libraries over the past 6 months. On March 17th, we did close our doors to the public for several weeks, but we still continue to provide public library service via phone, email, and chat, and we provided a variety of successful online programs for all ages, and also assisted customers with our downloadable resources ranging from entertainment resources, which includes our ebooks, e-movies, e-television shows for download, to genealogy resource, to homework resources as well, because school was still in session at that time. In April, we started to provide curbside and home delivery services, and then in July, we finally opened our doors up to the public again. And in Moorhead and around the region, customers were so happy to reconnect with library staff. Working in the lower level of the Moorhead Public Library, I do get to witness activity upstairs at the Moorhead Library. And I can tell you that customers are very happy to access public computers again. They're often using them to apply for unemployment benefits, for jobs, and a variety of online appointments for other services as well. For some people, when we reopened, it was the first time our customers had a chance to check their email and their online accounts in months. And customers of all ages have been using the library's printing services to print everything from court documents to homework assignments. And also, we are now checking out Wi-Fi hotspots for customers, which has drawn in a whole new group of customers as well. And we do want to remind customers that while our doors are open again, we are still offering curbside and home delivery services. And we are still available providing services by phone, email, or chat to help you with your information or technology needs. Now, at the Moorhead Public Library, traffic has been slower than usual, but it is still steady. And those who are using the library have expressed how grateful they are to have the library open again. We've received a lot of thank you notes and emails and personal messages from people thanking us for telling us how much they missed us and how grateful they are to have us open again. And just last week, I received a letter in the mail that said, "Thank you for what you do for the community, providing services to such a cross-section of our population. We are so grateful." So it's been very nice to know how appreciated we are and that we are such a vital service in this community. The Moorhead Public Library staff have been amazing through all this. Not only have they held their own in Moorhead, but they've really stepped up to provide phone and online support to customers across our region. I'm going to see if I can pull up another slide here. Okay, so of course I'm here to answer any questions you might have about Lake Agassiz Regional Library services or the services at the Moorhead Public Library, but I'm also here to answer any questions that you might have about the budget request for 2021. In June, the Lake Agassiz Regional Library Board notified the City of Moorhead of our budget request for 2021, and this is based on a 2% overall increase in the budget. Once we establish a 2% increase, we then run a formula based on where borrowers reside, population, and property value. And based on those factors, you'll see the increase in funding from 2020 to 2021. And unfortunately, you'll see under the revenue, you see a list of all of our signatories, which are the cities and counties that have signed our joint powers agreement. And if any of those cities or counties are unable or choose not to fund the increase, then what we have to do is take a look at personnel costs and cut personnel costs dollar for dollar regarding the increase, which often ends up in a reduction of hours to that particular location. So do any of you have any questions about services at Lake Agassiz Regional Library or about the budget request for 2021?
Thank you, Ms. Lynch. Council, any questions? Please advise by putting your hand up. All right. I don't see that there are any questions, Ms. Lynch.
All right, well, thank you very much.
No, thank you. Thank you for your support of the library, and your advocacy is greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. That moves us to 5B. Resolution recognizing Juneteenth, and I believe the presenter is going to be the Human Rights Commission Chair, Cani Adan.
Thank you so much, Mayor Jay.
Thank you for being here tonight.
Yep. Hello, everyone. Thank you for inviting me here. And my name is Cani Adan, and I am the Program Coordinator of Afro-American Development Association. And also, I am the Chair of Moorhead Human Rights Commission. And we began this campaign here in Moorhead in an effort to name this campaign something a city holiday, while also raising awareness for its significance for Black Americans and American culture as well. So I had a chance to talk to and sit down with Black community leaders to talk about this. My dream and their dream is for Juneteenth to be recognized here as a city and recognized as a day of observance for just like a Flag Day, although Juneteenth originated from Texas. We relaunch our campaign here this summer in light of the current climate to continue raising public awareness and to show that there is a support for Juneteenth all across our city here in Moorhead. My goal, our goal with this petition and my effort is to show our city leaders that I am not alone in this desire to have recognition for Juneteenth as a day to celebrate freedom for all. So why is this important? June 19th signifies that ending of slavery and liberation for formerly enslaved Black people in the United States. The holiday was created in remembrance of June 19th, 1865, the day that some of the last set of Black enslaved people in Galveston, Texas, received the news of their emancipation. Of many Black Americans prefer to celebrate this day. Juneteenth is a day for Black people to appreciate our ancestors, remembers all they went through, and to celebrate the resilience of Black people in America. So here, Juneteenth also has a significance beyond the Black community. Is also serve as unified Juneteenth or symbolize the unity of America. It's the unity of America at a time just like now, where it appears as if there is a little unified to be found. Juneteenth can be served as unifying event because it's a unifying event because of recognition that formerly enslaved Africans who made pleas for their freedom had lives in the fight. Please sign this petition to recognize Juneteenth as a city holiday and share this with your networks as well. I am very happy, and we are very happy to bring this important cultural celebration right here, the heart of the city, because Black history is American history, and it's also Moorhead history. In the African American community, Juneteenth represents a sacred day of memory marked by millions of people and usually participating in festival, paradise, and other gatherings. National holidays, service, and ultimate reflections of the sacrifice of workers, soldiers, and patriotic Americans who shed blood by democracy and gave themselves for this great republic. There is no group deserve this honor more than the generation of enslaved African Americans who are the key to build this great United States of America into great superpower that the world has ever known. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Adan, for your commentary and also for your leadership, along with Vice Chair Heather Keeler for getting this before the council this evening. I do recognize that there is one other person that wishes to speak on this matter, and I do believe she is on the line. Miss Destiny Holiday, are you present?
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can, Ms. Holiday. What we normally...
Yes, this is an exciting time for me. I never thought that we would be here beside anything about Juneteenth. When I brought this dream, I had this dream of bringing Juneteenth to this area. I felt that bringing Juneteenth here would help our community to connect. And I thought it was a great way to get history out about Black slavery and all the things that was suffered through that time. Not only did I want to bring Juneteenth to this area for that reason, but I felt that bringing Juneteenth to this area will help us to be what I always say, an inclusive city. That's what stood out to me when I came here, and I wanted to become true on every aspect. And I thought, what better way to bring Juneteenth here? I didn't know how it was going to work, but I knew that we had to do it, and we did. And this would be so awesome to have this recognized in Moorhead, make it official. Juneteenth has, at our first event, for 200 presents. And it was huge. Everybody was excited. We had different, I mean, it was really, really an exciting time. I never thought that it would be that big, but I knew that we had to get it up because I felt that when we would bring Juneteenth here, it will raise awareness, which would cause our cities to connect, and it has. We had our second Juneteenth, and it was off the chain, and it even connected more. So I really feel that it was a great thing to bring it, and I believe that it would be an awesome thing to approve Juneteenth as a day of celebration in Moorhead, because I believe that other cities will reach out, because my expectation for Moorhead is to be the best inclusive all the way around city that is, and we are. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you again.
And thank you for your comments, Ms. Holliday. I thank you for the invitation for attending the first recognized celebration that you put on behalf of your organization, Birthing of a Diamond. So you also will be a part of that history that you connected our city and blessed our city with that celebration. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Are there any other council members that wish to be heard regarding this resolution? Okay. Hearing none, I think we'll ask for a motion to approve the resolution.
I think you can't see the hands raised.
I can't see. You're correct. I'm sorry, Councilmember White. I don't. If we can have, there we go. Now we got it. My apologies, Councilmember White. Go right
I don't
ahead.
know if
Sorry about
anybody else
that.
had theirs up too.
Yeah, I didn't see it until now. Oh, now we got it. Okay. Now I see two hands. You're up first.
Thank you. I wanted to speak on behalf of this. You know, when I'm pleased to have the opportunity to have been part of the discussion of this on Human Rights Commission. And one of the things that came to mind is just that, you know, a little over a year or so ago, we came up with our motto for the city, which is where the strong belong. And I think how much this fits with that, because when you look at the meaning behind Juneteenth, it is in part an acknowledgement of a horrific part of our nation's history, but it really is much more than that, because it's also an opportunity for us to really celebrate the strengths and the perseverance of Black Americans. And, you know, this is an opportunity for us all to learn from that and follow that example. And I think it, as I said, it really fits with the motto of our city, and something that really should be celebrated and acknowledged. And I'm really proud to have this be something that is embraced within our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember White, for your words. Councilmember Watson-Curry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Connie and Destiny. I guess I just wanted to say I wish that we were able to all be together. This symbolic moment is always really a special one in chambers when people are able to come together in person. And so I'm kind of missing that in this moment, but it's still very, very special. And I just wanted to uplift that it's not only making a resolution to recognize this, but the work that we want to continue to do to reference what Ms. Holliday said is to work towards an inclusive community. So this is one step in a whole network of activities, but it's really important that it's on our calendar, and I'm excited to support it. Thank you.
Thank you for your words, Councilmember Watson Curry. Any other council members wish to be heard on this topic? All right, again, thank you everyone for your support. I pretty much will echo all that has been said. So with that, is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved, Deb White.
Second, Chuck. That's Linda's.
I'll leave it to Madam City Clerk to figure that one out. And with that, any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam City Clerk.
I gave that one to Chuck. I heard him first. Dahlquist,
Yes.
Watson Curry,
Yes.
Carlson, Durand,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Seljevold,
Aye.
Hendrickson,
Aye.
Lindas.
Yeah.
Motion passes. Thank you, everyone, for your work on this very important historical occasion. Thank you. Nice work.
Thank you for having us.
Yes.
Thank you both as well. All right, folks, we'll go on to item 5C, Small Business Week proclamation. And I guess to introduce that, I will invite Mr. Derrick LaPoint, Downtown Moorhead, Inc.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. The mayor has a proclamation that he'll read here shortly. I just wanted to say a few words. Small Business Week was typically scheduled to be a few months back. They ultimately, the National SBA decided to postpone that date and just recently announced it to this upcoming week. We really wanted to obviously get that proclamation out there, but also wanted to just take a couple minutes to note that our small businesses here in Moorhead and across the nation have obviously been truly affected by the pandemic and everything that has gone over the last number of months. And although this is a recognized week of appreciation, there is so much more to be done for our small businesses. And I know I speak for many of them that they've truly been blessed by the community support that has happened so far to keep them afloat. But we need to continue to be there for them as a community, continue to shop local, continue to eat local, use your delivery, your curbside pickup, go in person if you can. But our businesses are truly going to need us over the next number of months and certainly the next few years. So we appreciate our small businesses and look forward to supporting them in many, many ways in the coming years. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'll let you read the proclamation.
I also want to send a gratitude to you, Mr. LaPoint, for your advocacy and for your work and promoting small businesses over here in the city of Moorhead. Obviously, it's part of our mission that we want to continue to do for all of our residents, but also showing that support I know is vital to the economic development in our community. So for those at home, I'm reading from my tablet because we don't have paper. So I'm going to read it out, so I'll try to scroll accordingly. Forgive me if I'm a little slow on the draw here. Official proclamation, City of Moorhead, State of Minnesota. Whereas, America's progress has been driven by pioneers who think big, take risks, and work hard. And whereas, from the storefront shops at Anchor Main Street to the high-tech startups that keep America on the cutting edge. Small businesses are the backbone of our community and the cornerstones of our nation's promise. And whereas small business owners and Main Street businesses have an energy and passion for what they do, and whereas when we support small businesses, jobs are created and local communities preserve their unique culture. And whereas because this country's 30 million small businesses create nearly 2 out of 3 jobs in our economy, we cannot resolve ourselves to create jobs and spur economic growth in America without discussing ways to support our entrepreneurs. And whereas the President of the United States has proclaimed National Small Business Week every year since 1963 to highlight the programs and services available to entrepreneurs throughout the U.S., Small Business Administration, and other government agencies, and whereas the City of Moorhead supports and joins in this national effort to help America's small businesses do what they do best, grow their businesses, create jobs, and ensure that our communities remain as vibrant tomorrow as they are today. Now, therefore, I, Jonathan R. Judd, Mayor of the City of Moorhead, do hereby proclaim September 20 through September 26, 2020 as National Small Business Week in the City of Moorhead and call upon the people of this community to shop local. Thank you. Now, Madam City Clerk, at some point I should sign this, right? Or have I already signed it? I think I did, didn't I? Okay, I had to make sure. Again, virtual folks. I figured I might have signed it, but you never know. So thank you, Mr. LaPoint. That moves us on, folks, to item number 6 on the agenda, the approval of the minutes, 6A, the meeting minutes from August 24th, 2020. Are there any additions, corrections that need to be made to those minutes from our prior meeting? Hearing, seeing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve.
Steve Lindos moves approval of minutes.
Second.
I heard somebody second, but I can't tell. Madam City Clerk, you got it? Okay.
I believe it was Shelley Carlson. I'm going to go with that one.
All right.
Dahlquist,
Yes.
Watson Curry, Watson Curry,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Durand,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Seljevold,
Aye.
Hendrickson,
Aye.
Lindos.
Yes, and I can't wait until we're back in council chambers at some point.
I would agree. Motion passes. Item number 7, citizens addressing the council. Are there any citizens that wish to be heard on an item that is not on the agenda? I'll defer to Acting City Manager Molly, Madam City Clerk. Any citizens wish to be heard on on items that are not on the agenda?
Not at this time, Mayor.
Thank you. That moves us to our first public hearing. Item number 9, a public hearing regarding the request of Nick Agnew on behalf of AP Real Estate LLC, leasing to AP Concrete LLC for property tax exemption for a project located at 4125 32nd Avenue South. So is there a motion to move us into public hearing?
So moved, Chuck.
Second, Watson Curry.
Right. I'll leave it to Madam City Clerk again. No further discussion. Madam City Clerk.
I went with Watson Curry. There was someone, I heard someone's voice, but I couldn't distinguish who it was. Dahlquist,
Yes.
Watson Curry,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Durand,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Seljevold,
Aye.
Hendrickson? Hendrickson? Lindos?
Yes.
And I'll try Hendrickson one more time.
All right, well, motion passes, and we'll figure it out here a little bit later. So, Mr. LaPoint?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and members of the council. As the mayor pointed out, we have a commercial industrial property tax application on behalf of Nick Agnew. Nick wasn't able to attend virtually here tonight, so I'll try to answer your questions as best as I can if you have any. AP Concrete is looking to construct a approximately 8,600 square foot industrial building in the industrial park. This is a growing business, a Minnesota growing business that is looking to set up their operations here in Moorhead, so we're very grateful for that. They are purchasing a privately held property that had some existing improvements on the property. So as you may recall, with our commercial industrial property tax exemption, the land and any existing value will remain taxable. So there's $122,000 of land value and approximately $48,000 of current value for improvements that will remain with the property. The estimated property tax for the new value is estimated at about $655,000. That's a new value that's estimated. The AP Concrete will have retaining some additional jobs, so 2 to 3 jobs. Based on our policy, the new taxable value equates to a 3-year property tax exemption. If approved here tonight, they would begin construction hopefully here in September yet, with an estimated completion of January of 2021. And this parcel is zoned light industrial and meets all requirements elsewise. So be happy to answer any questions you may have, and look forward to supporting a growing Minnesota business.
Thank you, Mr. LaPoint. Are there any questions for Mr. LaPoint regarding this particular project and request? All right. Hearing none, is there a motion to take us out of public hearing? Actually, before we make that motion, let me make sure, because we do have a number of folks, I think I may know the answer to this question. Is there any folks on the phone that wish to be heard regarding this matter? Okay, hearing none, then I'll ask for the motion, please.
And please.
So I'll second it then.
I'll second.
Madam City Clerk, if you need to clarify, go ahead and do that.
I went with a first from Lindos, second from White.
Okay, no worries. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam City Clerk?
Dahlquist?
Yes.
Watson Curry?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Durand?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
Soljevold?
Aye.
Hendrickson? Lindos?
Yes.
Motion passes. Then 9A, the resolution portion to approve the property tax exemption. Is there a motion to?
I move to approve. Deb White.
Move to. I'll second then.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded in regards to 9A, the resolution portion to approve. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Madam City Clerk?
Dahlquist?
Yes.
Watson Curry?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Durand?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
Soljevold?
Aye.
Hendrickson? Lindos?
Yes.
Motion passes. We'll move on to item number 10 for those at home. A public hearing for ordinance 2020-10, an ordinance to create and enact Chapter 11 of Title II of the Moorhead Municipal Code relating to business and license regulations for short-term consumer lenders. Is there a motion to take us back into public hearing for that item?
Durand, move.
Watson Curry, second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. Madam City Clerk?
Carlson,
Yes.
Dahlquist,
Yes.
Watson Curry,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Durand,
Yes.
Seldgevold,
Aye.
Lindos,
Yes.
Hendrickson.
Motion passes. And I think to present this is City Planner Chrissy Olszewski.
Thank you, Mayor Judd.
Thank you.
The proposed request before council tonight is to hold a public hearing and receive comments on a proposed new city code related to short-term consumer lenders. You may recall that Councilmember Durand introduced the issue to the council at your last meeting. And the proposal intends to tackle a few issues. One is no more than 2 loans of $1,000 per less per calendar year per lender. Limitations on interest rate and fees, maximum repayment requirements of 60 days, and itemization of all fees to be paid by the borrower. The ordinance also includes an annual report and fees that would be implemented in the fee schedule, including $500 for the initial license and $250 for annual renewals. The proposed standards, annual report, and license fees are all on page 23 of your packet, as well as within the ordinance document itself. These were also discussed at the August 19th Human Rights Commission. The HRC unanimously supported the efforts and also discussed whether or not the ordinance should also limit the number of short-term consumer lenders within the community. City Attorney Shockley has noted that this could be done in a few ways, either limiting the number of licenses or restricting related entities from having multiple licenses. So we are requesting council feedback on that issue tonight, as it is currently not within the ordinance. The proposed standards and hearing information were sent to MBA, DMI, e-notification, as well as to the 2 short-term lenders in Moorhead. There was a comment in opposition from one of the lenders. I will note that that's on page 30 of your packet for the public hearing record. There's a few notes within that I just wanted to quickly address, and any additional questions City Attorney Shockley could also address. There were questions related to the maximum loan amounts, and of note, there are 2 types of payday loans in Minnesota statute, and the 2 types are regulated differently, and this ordinance addresses both types. There was also a question related to fees and interest, and the proposed ordinance provides for maximum fees within the city of Moorhead unless otherwise prescribed by state law. Also note that the Human Rights Commission recommended that we take a look at maybe a few additional efforts on this front. One was to provide information to residents on Exodus Lending, which is a Minnesota nonprofit dedicated to helping address payday loan debt concerns. And then also working with local banks and lenders to do outreach and find better ways to service this particular population that might need lending services. Again, Councilmember Durand has been working on this along with City Attorney John Shockley. Open any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Thank you, Ms. Olszewski, for that. Sorry, I wanted to make sure my mic was on. Councilmember Durand, I know that you have had some pretty big work involved in this. Do you want to speak on this at all?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to. I don't want to take up too much time, but definitely would answer questions if anybody has. I know one issue that did come up was in the email from the opposition. There was a note that limiting these types of loans would damage a person's ability to get needed or necessary funds. And I just wanted to point out that that really is a typical comeback or rebuttal that we see from payday lenders. It's one of the first things that people will often claim, but in fact, if you look at the statistics in 22 states that have passed or some type of a ban or a limit on payday loans, the surveys show that people are finding healthier ways to get money. They're willing and they're more able to work with lenders, local lenders, and they're people to whom they owe money. They actually lowered their expenses because they weren't trapped in a payday loan trap. And they more often would seek out family and friends. So a lot of times a payday loan is a hidden way to deal with a financial issue that might be embarrassing to somebody. If that issue isn't there, our community is more aware of the needs of our community members. If payday loans are restricted, and I'm not saying banned, but if they're restricted and and used in situations where a person has the ability to pay it off at their next payday, that's one thing. But when we don't know, because this is something that people don't openly share, people don't openly talk about having to go to a payday lender. And so a lot of times communities aren't aware of the level or the magnitude of the financial suffering in our communities. And especially now with COVID and unemployment benefits draining, being used up and people losing their jobs, this is more of an issue than ever. But we need to kind of put a limit on this so that our community knows what level we're at, so we can step up as a community and help people find better ways, healthier ways of dealing with this, a financial crisis. And so we first need to limit what we are allowing here so that we can gauge and work with our community members, work with our partners, such as utility companies, banks, lenders, so that we can get people in touch with healthy ways of getting out of a financial distress. I don't know if anybody has any more specific questions. Sometimes we hear that payday loans have such huge interest rates because they're considered risky loans. But the fact is, if you look at the number of defaults or charge-offs versus the number of loans made, in Moorhead, with one particular payday lending institution, the write-off or the charge-off amount is about, let me see where my stats are. In 2018, it was about 0.33% of all loans that were taken out. And in 2019, it was about 0.5% of loans that were taken out. So payback is made eventually. So charge-offs aren't very often or don't occur very often. So the fact that it's a risky loan is, again, another one of those myths that we hear often. But I'm happy to answer any questions. Christy has done fantastic work on this. John Shockley too has done great work. I don't know if Josh Huffman is I see him here. He is very well versed in the issue. He was a financial counselor for the village, and acting city manager Dan Molly also has done work in this area too. So happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Councilmember Durand. I see that we've got 4 hands up, and I'm going to go in order in which they appeared in front of me. So we'll do Councilmember Watson Curry, then Councilmember Dahlquist, Councilmember, I believe, Hendrickson, and then Lindas. So Councilmember Watson, I'm sorry. Yep, and Mr. Lade, I do see you here as well. So what I will do is you will have an opportunity to comment. I'm going to make sure that these are, whether these are comments or questions as related to what Ms. Lashovsky has presented, and then we'll move on to your comments as well. So, and I see some hands down. So Councilmember Dahlquist, then Councilmember Hendrickson, then Linda. I saw your hand. Did you put your hand? Okay. I wasn't sure.
Sorry, I put my hand down.
So you put it down because
I'm still in the comment though.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry.
That's fine, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm so sorry. I just want to say thanks to my colleague, Councilmember Durand, for championing this. And I know it's been mentioned before, but Clay County has a pretty high rate of loans, so I don't know if that's something that we want to share because that is pretty surprising. The other piece I wanted to think about as far as the outreach as we bring this to public hearing was excellent. I think pending approval, it would be also great to reach out to like Community Action Plan or other related organizations that might be interfacing with people who are in these difficult situations who are looking for a bit of income to help bridge the gap. So that was my only comment, is if we can just kind of uplift what's happening in Clay County and then talk a little bit about, not at this moment, but just wanted to offer that suggestion of outreach. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Watson Curry. Councilmember Dahlquist.
Thank you, Mayor. I kind of have the same question. If we could maybe use the fees that we are collecting and use them to educate and inform people that are looking for these kinds of loans. And working with these banks, I know a lot of times people do go to these because they don't have any credit rating, and so they can't qualify for financing from banks. And so I was hoping that we could, whatever we collect from fees would be used to help educate. That's a possibility?
If I can chime in real quick, I just want to put a plug in for Exodus Lending because they have done a lot of outreach in the area. They've talked with Lakes and Prairie. So Lakes and Prairie knows about Exodus Lending and that program, and how a person has a loan, a payday loan in Minnesota, they're a Minnesota resident, Exodus Lending will pay off the loan interest-free, fee-free, and the individual just pays back Exodus Lending. So they've done a lot of research a lot of outreach in the area. We can continue to do that, and I have continued to do that. And there is some research out of, I think it was St. Louis, and how they did something very similar to what Councilmember Dahlquist was talking about, is using those fees, the licensing fees, to use to help individuals in financial distress. And so that is possible. We can look at something like that. And then Councilmember Watson Curry, you're right, Clay County has a very high number of payday loans per capita. We, in 2018, possibly 2017, I'd have to double check, but we were number 2 per capita in number of payday loans that were taken out. So it is a startling number.
Thank you for the question, Councilmember Dahlquist. Councilmember Hendrickson, then Councilmember Lindas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Got a quick question, and my internet went out, so I'm sorry. It's been kind of spotty lately, so I had to kick one of my kids off his iPod just to make it happen. Anyways, you know, are the banks, are local banks, do they have, I mean, you might have mentioned this before, but do the local banks have any type of programs for people with low credit scores or no credit? Have they been reaching out to them at all?
I can't say. I don't know. I do know we had a group, a collaborative group that met a few years ago, and there were lenders that were in attendance who, you know, were committed to the issue of helping this cause and doing their part. So I know there is the willingness to look at what can be done. And again, just another plug for Exodus Lending is now they are reporters to credit bureaus. And so a person who uses Exodus Lending can rebuild or build credit by paying off their payday loan, which Exodus Lending has a 99% payback rate. So people are able to get out of the payday debt trap as well as rebuild or build their credit score.
Okay, and just a follow-up question to that, and maybe, I don't know if you know this, Heidi, or is Josh was on the phone, I bet you Josh knows. There's certain banks where you could take an advance and you get the money up front, but then when your direct deposit comes in, they take the money out of that, and it's usually at a 40 to 50% markup. The ordinance that we have, that we're looking at tonight, does that cover those? No. Okay. Because that's a hardship too. I know, I don't, and the bank, institution I used to work for used to have what's called a direct deposit advance. And, I'd see people making those and he would never catch up, but this ordinance wouldn't cover that. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councilmember Hendrickson. Councilmember Lindas, you're up.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Councilmember Durand, for championing this and putting this forward. So I guess, Council members Dahlquist and Watson Curry kind of answered the questions and already, but to maybe push a little further, the Human Rights Commission actually suggested, trying to get information about Exodus Lending to people. And one of the challenges is always reaching the people that need that information. And so I was I guess one of the questions is, and I'm not sure who can answer this, but what would that look like? Could we say, people coming back for a, reborrow would be also needed to be given information about other options they have, such as Exodus Lending, or is there other ideas that are in the pipeline for addressing the needed education piece that needs to go along with this too?
That's a great question, Councilmember Lindas. We have asked, or we've been in touch with organizations that do financial counseling, that do credit consolidation. And actually, we've even talked to MPS about the issue of including information on Exodus Lending. We know that when people get stuck in a payday loan trap, they tend to become delinquent on other accounts, utilities being one. And, just in since COVID hit, at our last MPS meeting, we learned that currently in Moorhead, there are over 1,300 accounts that are past due by 2 months or more. And so we have MPS staff who are calling individuals, letting them know what their options are, payment plans, and also, just subtly mentioning other services that are available, not just Exodus Lending, but other alternatives to help get them, back current. So yes, we are working with community members, community agencies. We're trying to get the word out the best we can.
That's an excellent idea of putting a communication piece, an education piece in with the MPS billings.
Thank you, Councilmember Lindas. Councilmember Seljeval, your hand is up.
My confusion is the amount of money. The ordinance talks about 2 loans of $1,000. Chris Lade of Greenback talks about Minnesota statutes limiting them to $350. And then on the little slides that you had, it was a typical Minnesota loan was $380. So what is the Minnesota statute on this?
I think John would be a great person to answer the statute specifics.
Mr. City Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So there are two types of consumer loans in Minnesota, each covered by a different statute. So loans up to $350 are covered by 47.60, and those are consumer small loans. And then there are those are then there are consumer short-term loans, which are covered by 47.601. And what we tried to do in the ordinance, and once again, the reason why we wanted to have a public hearing was to just gather information before we brought it forth for the first reading. And so the intent is to limit the maximum amount of loans, whether it would be either the up to 350 or the up to 1,000 to 2, and limit the maximum fees to $25 per loan unless a different amount is required under state statute. For the smaller $350 consumer small loans, there's a sliding scale that's set forth in state statute that limits how much can be charged. I actually don't think the issue is the amount that can be charged. I think it's the constant re-upping and renewing the loans over and over. And I think maybe Councilmember Durand could highlight a little bit of the issue isn't so much just taking out one loan, it's the multiple use of the loans by the consumer. But there's two different statutes that cover them. There's two different kinds of loans.
Does that answer your question, Councilmember Seljevold? You're on mute.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Okay, sorry. Thank you. Councilmember Hendrickson, is that a new hand or an old hand?
No, that's a new one, Mayor.
Okay, go right ahead.
Just another quick question, too. I did work in the banking field for 15 years, and I used to get people who came in for loans and had, poor credit ratings, no credit. Are we letting the banks know, do they have, like outlets where they can send customers to get low interest loans? Or, and I know you said the one, but have you been working with the banks on that at all? And I know I asked that question before, but it's kind of concerning that, I used to get people at my office and they'd have low credit scores and I'd send them away and I wouldn't really have a place to send them except to our prime loan area, which was very high interest too. But I was wondering, have we been working with banks? Because we need to have communication with the banks and the customers, stating that, we can't offer you a loan today, but we can direct you to this place or this place. So I'm kind of wondering how that was going.
No, I have not worked with any banks specifically. I think that is much needed. We have to have, like you said, a place or a program for individuals who are financially distressed and financially vulnerable. Sometimes they are, the individuals are referred to a church or a nonprofit agency, but a lot of times that doesn't always meet their need. And I'm hoping that this type of limitation and this type of movement will push us to the next step, which is community partner involvement and getting banks more involved, and not just banks, but other lending institutions, credit unions, so that we do have assistance to offer. But we have to start somewhere, and this is where I'm hoping that we can start. Once we see more people looking for and needing help from a bank, because we have limited the amount of loans and the interest rates, I think we're going to see a more realistic picture of who needs, who are financially vulnerable and who is it that's using these types of loans. So that is on the horizon. It's something that we definitely want to tackle, but one thing at a time.
Yeah, to me, and I understand where you're coming from, Councilmember Durand, but it's when I had to turn people away and tell them to go somewhere else when they couldn't afford a loan and they need to make a car payment or put groceries on the table. I mean, I wish and at the time there was a couple places I could direct my customers to, but we need to build that up. We need to build a relationship up. So So these bankers, these lending institutions, these account managers, I mean, they could tell them, yeah, well, we have different alternatives, because a lot of people are hurting right now, and we need to build that relationship with the banking institutions and the credit and the financial institutions throughout Moorhead and Minnesota, for that fact. So,
yep, I totally agree.
Thank you for your hard work on this. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Councilmember Hendrickson. I think, I just want to make sure, Councilmember Selgerville, your hand is still up. Is that an old or a new hand? Okay, I'll interpret that as an old hand. I think Mr. Nicholas Lade, are you still on the phone? Thank you for remaining online here. Can you hear me okay?
I am, yes.
Okay.
I am, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you just fine. So what we'll do is we'll set our timer here, and I want to note for the record, as Ms. Lashovsky already has, the council has received and reviewed your email that you sent in. So if there's anything else.
That's my brother, but yes.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that you know that we have acknowledged it, and so Madam City Clerk, if you'll start the timer, and Mr. Lee, you've got 3 minutes, and for the record, we do have your address, so you're fine.
Thank you very much. Yeah, my name's Nick Lade. I'm a resident of Moorhead, Minnesota. I'm one of 3 owners of Greenbacks Inc. We're a family-owned local business. It's been operating in Moorhead for the better part of 20 years. Well, we at Greenbacks, we follow all the regulations set by the state of Minnesota in regards to short-term lending. We get our license from the Department of Commerce and report all requested numbers and data to the state yearly. I'd like to point out that in the United States, Minnesota has some of the most comprehensive and fair short-term lending regulations in the nation. Not only do they take into account the needs of the borrowers, but they understand the needs and the risks taken by the lender. I didn't set the rates that we have for everyone. The state of Minnesota did. I believe it was the Banking Commission. And so I know one of the members had brought up, had stated in the last meeting and this one that this proposal is not a ban. Well, unfortunately, we've seen that when these kinds of regulations are put into place in other cities and states, that it does put us short-term lenders completely out of business. And as a council member was talking just before I got on about what were the other options for my clients who need short-term loans, and there wasn't really much of an answer because the banks don't borrow, and the real answer is that there isn't other options. And so I think that taking away an option without having something else in place is not really the best way to go about it. The proposed ordinance limiting our borrowers to only 2 loans a year, capping our APR at 33%, would make it impossible for us to sustain a short-term lending service in the city of Moorhead. That's kind of like telling me that you can only use your credit card twice a year. It's not a sustainable way for us to run a business, nor is it beneficial for my clients. And with that, I would like to talk. Let's see. The proposed ordinance would only really close the two businesses in Moorhead, and it would only put more stress on lenders who have limited options. In our opinion, it's regulation without a solution. My clients' needs are not going to disappear, and they're only going to move to North Dakota, where they're going to be charged even higher interest rates. In North Dakota, the rates are 3 times what they are in Minnesota, and that's part of why this county has had so many loans, is because we have a competitive rate against North Dakota. With that being said, I would just like to say that, we live in a time where we're all kind of in a cyclical debt, whether it's student loans, mortgages, credit cards, or car payments. We all use our credit cards, pay them off, reborrow again. There's not much difference between a client of mine who takes a $100 loan for $15 for 2 weeks, pays it off and then comes and sees me again in a month. I just had a client that came in and borrowed $80 for 1 week, and it came to $86.50. I hadn't seen her in 3 months. She paid it off, and I probably won't see her again. And so these are things that don't really get brought up when it comes to, we're always talking about the worst case scenario. And with all, credit options, there's always the potential for someone to abuse them or to go overboard, like with credit cards, taking $40K out or any other thing like that.
Mr. Lay, yes. I don't mean to cut you off. I'll let you go just a couple seconds here over, but I'll have to. Go ahead.
Oh, I'll finish it up real quick here for you guys. So for the better part of 20 years, our family has created a community of clients who depend on us and respect us just as we do them. They not only come to us for financial needs, they come to us for advice and any number of life issues that face them. When things get tough, as they have during this pandemic, I'm constantly reminded by our clients of how much they appreciate what we do for them and how much they depend on us during this uncertainty. So with that, I appreciate all your time and listening to us. And like we said, we've been around for quite a long time. I know we have lots of clients who depend on us. With that, I would encourage all of you to vote no on the proposed ordinance 2020-10 in regards to that. We believe that it's only going to push business to North Dakota, where they'll have an even higher rate. So I appreciate you all letting me speak tonight. I wish you all the best, and thank you very much.
And thank you, sir. And I want to make a clarity point here. My apologies. You're the brother of the author of the email, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and you're still a part of the ownership, but since we do not have your address,
yes.
Can you just note your address for the record, please?
My home address?
Yes.
Yes, my address is 311 Main Avenue in Moorhead, Minnesota, apartment number 208.
Great, okay, thank you, really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to comment on a comment that was made. If I could?
Yep, that's fine.
Two things actually. We were told that taking away an option without having another option is not a good idea. It's never a good idea. But if that option is not a healthy option, I think it's a good idea because then a person will more likely seek a healthier option. And then in terms of moving to North Dakota for a loan, well, North Dakota has probably a stronger, they probably have stronger rules in place than Minnesota. North Dakota actually maxes their loans at $500. They have a loan tenure of 60 days. They have fees and finance charges no more than 20%, and they're only allowed one rollover. So if that's the case that people will resort to North Dakota, they're probably going to find a loan is more repayable in Fargo than it is in Minnesota. And that's one of the things that we've been frustrated with is that South Dakota and North Dakota have healthier rules in place than we do here in Minnesota. So when North Dakota changed their laws and limited the amount, fees, the rollover, and the payback period, we saw some major payday lenders who were making hundreds of thousands just in interest off our financially vulnerable. They closed their doors. So that tells you that, it says a lot. I'll leave it at that.
Well, thank you for the follow-up comments, Councilmember Durand. I think, and just so for those at home, this is a public hearing. There will be 3 readings of this. ordinance, this proposed, I'm sorry, 2 proposed readings of this ordinance. So this will be an ongoing conversation, so if there are any questions or comments that folks wish to have, please advise and communicate either via phone or electronic means so we can follow up with that. Councilmember Durand, I thought I saw a hand up. Are you good, or?
And I did it the right way this time with using the computer, actually. Yeah, well, I fully support this, obviously, but I also am interested in adding a component that would limit the number of licenses so that a business can't open up an arm of their current business and be able to bypass the ordinance that we are putting in place. So I would like to have staff look into that and our attorney look into that and how that can be worded and how we can cover ourselves from that loophole. And that's all I got.
Okay. Thank you again for the follow-up. Is there any other further comments from council, staff? Okay. Hearing none, is there anyone else on the phone that wishes to be heard regarding this public hearing? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to take us out of public hearing.
Thus moves to move out of public hearing.
Second, Durand.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam City Clerk.
Durand,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Watson Curry,
Yes.
Dahlquist,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Lindos,
Yes.
Hendrickson,
Aye.
Selgebold.
Aye.
Motion passes. We are out of public hearing. Also, thank you, Ms. Laszowski, for presenting as well. Thank you. For those at home, item number 13 is where we're at on the agenda, Economic Development Update. Welcome back again, Mr. LaPoint.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. I got 3 things for you tonight. I think most of it is really good news. Partly just want to touch on our Moorhead Cares business grant application and program that we've started. As you know, we have our application period over. We had over 200 applications with over $1.7 million committed. 90 standard kind of over under 20 business or 20 employees businesses that applied, 42 sole proprietors, 15 nonprofits, and 53 minority-owned, women-owned businesses. So some great numbers there. We sent out final approval letters on Friday. Grantees need to submit a W-9 and a signed affidavit to receive the grant funds. And we're working with local banks that are currently providing drive-through options for notaries for these affidavits that come back to us. So I just want to say a special thanks to all the city staff that's just put endless hours into processing all of these grant applications, the communication that we've had with folks. Obviously, we knew we had to create a program that may cut people off from access to these funds, but I think overall, there's been a lot of happy people and a lot of happy organizations and businesses that are receiving these funds and putting them to good use right away. We are working with the county continually on their program as well. They had over 120 applications for their program that was very similar to ours. I think it was about a little under $1 million committed there. We are working with them at looking at a second round of business grants. That definition is yet to be determined. We're still looking at that, but looking at businesses maybe over 20 employees and looking at assisted living and care facilities in town. So stay tuned for more information, but that will be directly coming out of the county. We're working obviously in partnership, but the county will be the one that will host that second round. I'll maybe stop there and see if there's questions, and then I got 2 other things that I'll get to, or I can get right into the rest of it, whatever you'd prefer.
We'll just stop here just to make sure. Does council have any questions for Mr. LaPoint based on this particular topic? Councilmember Dahlquist, your hand is up.
Thank you, Mayor. Derrick, thank you for all the stuff that you've been doing here. It's very appreciated. One question I have is there any possibility to open this up to businesses that are in individuals' homes? I know that was one of the requirements. And I know there's a lot of people that do have like salons, contracting work. I know a guy that does T-shirts and caps out of his garage. Is there any way we can include all those businesses that work out of their homes to have the same ad?
Yeah, I appreciate your question, and we certainly did receive some comments from businesses in town that were asking for that as well. I would say just based on the overall dollar commitment that Moorhead has, it'd probably be tough, but that's something that we can continue to express with the county and see if that's something that they may be able to provide as well. I know I know the county felt strongly as well as kind of when we were establishing this is focusing on those businesses that had brick and mortar facilities, those that needed to make a lot of improvements and mortgage payments, et cetera, that had that physical asset. But conversations continue with the county, and I don't know if Dan, if you want to address anything on that as well.
Yeah, that's one that we're continuing to try. You know, we did some in-home businesses, and there were certain types. It's just there are so many. It's an interesting point that you make about kind of the 1099 and where that success is. I think where there's also value in the question is in, you know, a lot of these businesses that are starting in the home are businesses that are inventing what the future is going to look like. So they're kind of the newer and emerging businesses, the startups and the like. With this source of fund, it's just been that has been one hard nut to crack. When put up with some of these businesses that have brick and mortar expenses and employees to cover, and now on this second round where we've noticed the needs in these assisted living, the nursing homes, restaurants with over 20 employees, and some of the businesses with 20 to 50. So I think the comment is legitimate, and we've got to take that forward in our regular meetings with the county and talk about that.
Does that answer your questions, Councilmember Dahlquist?
Yes, thank you.
No problem. Any other council members have any questions for Mr. LaPoint on this topic? Hearing none, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll carry on here. So this one will be kind of brief, but obviously been taking a lot of phone calls here lately with the cooler weather that's approached, the Arctic air that we had, especially from restaurant owners expressing concerns about indoor occupancy restrictions, and obviously as colder weather approaches and we have so much of a reliance on the outdoor dining to kind of boost up their overall service. It's a real issue. We continue to work with the state of Minnesota leadership as well as the state of Minnesota Chamber of Commerce on this topic. I know the state is discussing this at great lengths of just what's the best thing to do from a public health safety standpoint, as well as kind of balancing the business needs as well. So I just wanted to make that note that we're receiving obviously a lot of phone calls from folks that are expressing concerns as the colder weather approaches and what that means to their business model. So it only furthers from my initial statement about the Small Business Appreciation Week that we just need to continue to support these service-based industries as best we can, even when the cold weather approaches. I can maybe just go through the next one here and then we can answer questions from there. But a very exciting announcement to make tonight. This is something that you're going to see a lot of over the next few meetings, but what I'm just calling it is the 8th and I-94 TIF. We have enclave companies here looking to start a project at the southeast corner of I-94 and A Street. City Clerk just put the project location map up on the screen. This is a housing TIF district, so the area in green on the screen is actually the TIF district that will be created. And then there's a master developer agreement that would be created by Mr. Shockley, or City Attorney Shockley, and John's office to tie the commercial component, the area in blue, together with the housing TIF. So a large housing and commercial project. A couple things to note. Per the state requirements, housing TIF districts do require affordable housing components, which Enclave is happy to accommodate, so we're working through that. Again, this is a very large investment. We're talking north of $30 million for this project itself. And I don't know how many of the council members have been a part of a TIF process, but it's very detailed. There's lots of steps involved with this, including notices to the county, the school district, and the establishment of obviously the TIF district, and ultimately the approval of the master development agreement. So there's lots of steps that need to happen here. We wanted to at least introduce you to it tonight, but knowing that there'll be many things to review and see and be a part of as we continue conversations with Enclave and the ownership group. You may recall too, this kind of corridor is a little bit messy. There's a lot of foreclosures, a lot of banks involved. So we thank Enclave for their interest and their willingness to go through this. They have a very tight window with their due diligence with all the banks. So we're working our hardest to make sure that we can ensure their timeliness. And also I just want to do a big shout out to city staff, including Finance Director Carla, Amy, Christy, Dan. We work very closely with Baker Tilly, who's does a lot of the TIF consultant work on this, as well as City Attorney John Shockley and his office for addressing a lot of the legal issues and putting together the master development agreement. So with that, I'll maybe stop, answer any of your questions you may have, but very exciting and promising project that could really change a corridor, a major corridor in our community.
Absolutely. That's great news and very exciting. And thank you, Mr. LaPoint, city staff, for all your work. Attorney Shockley, this is great. Any hands that want to go up on this one, or are we good until we get more details? All right. I see no hands. So, oh. I don't see the hand. Do we have a, there we go. All right. Councilmember White, sorry, just got your hand up.
Thank you. And Derrick, yeah, that is exciting news about the TIF district. I wanted to go back to the point that you made about some of the businesses being concerned about cold weather, and just to point out that our infection rates right now in the number of new cases that we're seeing in Clay County is the highest that we have seen since the pandemic started, and it's continuing to rise at an alarming rate. And so what else do you think we could do to be a little more proactive about doing things that can help our businesses out? Because, I think it would be very unrealistic to think that we'll be scaling back on any restrictions. And I think, if anything, we want people to be prepared that who knows, there could be more restrictions, but what could we be doing that might be a little more proactive? Because I think there's a lot of information that indicates that it's going to be a difficult fall, and we want to, do things besides just encouraging people to support our businesses, but doing it in a safe way and being proactive so that we can try to minimize the difficulties that they are going to be facing.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember. It's a very difficult one. I would say it's probably above all of us, with the state having to make some of these decisions, these very difficult decisions, and obviously the public health and safety component of it is very real. I will say the big thing is obviously, again, I mentioned it, but shop local as best we can, support these businesses. One thing that has been talked about with the state chamber is access to maybe outside heaters, something that could be available. But I will say those are flying off the shelf right now and very hard to get to. It's kind of like PPE all over again with access to stuff as it all comes, to a halt here with the cold weather approaching. So access to comfort, to allow those spaces to be a little bit more relaxing and obviously still safe. But it's a difficult one. I think my biggest takeaway, I think, through the whole thing is be a listening ear to many of these restaurants. I'm not going to say that I have all the answers, but the industries out there across the country, especially within our regional territory, are very sharp. I think they're coming up with great ideas that can work. So for me, it's really just listening to those industries, understanding what their needs are, potentially being an advocate for them at the state level or with the state chamber if need be. But we have to listen to what they can, what they need and what they can do to be successful as well.
Thank you, Councilmember White, for the question. Councilmember Lindas, your hand is up.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And just to segue off of Councilmember White's question, I guess one of the concerns that I have is the kind of coordination between, I'm not going to say Cass County, but at least Fargo and Moorhead and what we're doing here, because we do have an infection rate that's going up. It's kind of alarming when you look at the map of the United States and our county is the dark red one, indicating we don't have a good handle on our infection rate. But I think that it's naive to think that Fargo doesn't play a part in what's happening. And so is there some, kind of collaboration or coordination across the border with businesses? Because it's in everyone's best interest to get a handle on this. And a little self-sacrifice on everyone's part is going to make everyone actually more successful in the long term.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember. It's I wish it was easier said than done, right? Obviously, we communicate with our partners across the river as best we can, but when you have different states making different decisions, that makes it obviously much more complicated. I will say, though, that we have seen a lot of restaurants or service-oriented businesses across the river that put further restrictions than what the state of North Dakota has. So a lot of it does go on kind of that onus of the business, and I think we have intelligent business owners here that are trying to do what's best. But as far as potentially altering state issues or things like that, it's really in the governor's hands on both sides. So it's a little bit more complicated and difficult, but I do think the coordination between the two communities, we saw it with the mask mandates in Minnesota. It wasn't too long after that we saw the majority of the businesses, especially in downtown Fargo, that adopted that as well. So it's kind of a give and take, but we continue the conversations, and I think people are using the best judgment as they can. But it's also very difficult because we know our commerce is not separated by the border. People are going to freely choose to eat at restaurants on either side of the river. So that continued education component and making sure that we have access and safety on both sides is truly important.
Thank you. I appreciate all the work you do coordinating.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Lindas. Any other questions for Mr. LaPoint on this particular matter? All right, hearing none. Thank you. Appreciate all the work you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, folks, for those at home, we are on agenda item number 17, mosquito control update. And I believe that's Mr. Moore, who just hopped up to the podium.
Literally, yes.
And then also with you is Mr. Ben Prather.
Yes, yes.
And so for those at home, I just want to make sure that we are aware here that this is a informational session here. So we're gathering information, listening to information due to the fact that I know that this has been, obviously, as we're aware in our community, a really hot topic of conversation where there has been a lot of public engagement, and that is good. I will allow, in the essence of time and being efficient, after Mr. Moore and Mr. Prather have had a chance to provide their information, 2 individuals to speak or to be heard that are what I would say on the pro side of things, and then 2 individuals that wish to be heard on the con side of things. There will be 3 minutes. I will give a preference to folks initially, unless there are folks who have written a letter that wish to be heard, but I want to give preference to those who have not been able to be heard, if not by letter, by phone, only because we want to be equitable. Not everyone has access to electronic means, so phone may be the only way for those folks to be heard. If we do not have any folks that are calling by phone only, then we will defer to those that have written a letter and wish to be heard. So I just want to make sure that for folks that are on the phone, how this is going to roll. And so Mr. Moore, Mr. Prather are able to give their information. Because of the fact that you may not anticipate whatever questions that people may have, if you are not able to answer those questions tonight, no worries, because obviously you're prepared to give information. If you have the answer to the question, great. If not, you have more than enough time to come back and answer those questions at a later time. So,
Fair
just
enough.
so you're not put on the spot with
Thank
any
you.
unanticipated questions.
Sure.
So.
Okay. Thanks, Mayor Judd. Thanks, council members. I'm just going to take a few minutes just to kind of recap our program, just to kind of give that broad overview of our approach. Since 2016, the city of Moorhead has contracted with, has had an agreement with Cass County Vector Control. Ben Prather is the director of Cass County Vector Control. And I just want to publicly state that Cass County Vector Control has provided excellent and outstanding service to us since we started the agreement in 2016. They provide a number of services, and the reason we have worked with them is because we do not have neither the expertise nor the resources organic to the city of Moorhead. So that expertise lies over in Cass County. And then also, rather than doing our own thing, we are in concert with Fargo and Moorhead and rural Cass County. So as a collective area on approaching this mosquito control program together to maximize the effectiveness of it. They collect traps, they ID specimens, they record data, and they apply pesticides to include larvicide and truck-mounted ultra-low volume spray services. That's Cass County. We also have an additional agreement with Custom Airborne Aerial Spraying that does the aerial application. So Cass County does not do the aerial application. All cities, Fargo, West Fargo, and the city of Moorhead and rural Cass County all contract with the same vendor, and we coordinate those aerial applications together, again, to create an application that is in the entire FM area to maximize effectiveness. For us on the Minnesota side, we are required to submit an annual pesticide general permit notice of intent to the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, and that complies with the, I'll get into acronym soup here, NEPDIS and SDS. That's your National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System. That's a national program. And then the state disposal system is pared down specifically for the state of Minnesota. So we are following those rules specific to our state as Ben follows the rules specific to the state of North Dakota. So I wanted to highlight that. And then additionally, in addition to that general pesticide permit, we submit an annual report to the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, and that report outlines exactly what has been applied and where in the city of Moorhead. So it's a very detailed report that is reported every year. I just kind of wanted to summarize that. And I offer all this information to you just to frame everything and not to make excuses or discount the incident that occurred after the last aerial application on 26 August. But it's important to understand we have built a program collectively in the Fargo-Moorhead area to address the mosquito vector-borne disease for mosquitoes, and that's about all I'm going to delve into the the details of it, and I'm going to turn it over to the expert, of course. But that is our main primary focus, and it's a very challenging mission. It's one of the I've been involved in many missions in my this career and my previous career, and this is a very, very tough mission because you're trying to control those diseases as well as providing a community that people can get out and enjoy when we have such a very short period of time to do that. So with that, I was going to add a couple more things leading up to that incident on the 26th of August, and then I'll turn it over to you, Ben. You know, we had a 2-week window that we were looking at in August, and just to kind of, again, to paint the picture, typically the trap averages, you know, between 25 and 50, and then when it gets to be greater than 75, that's when we really look collectively at an aerial application, because essentially conditions are getting out of control where we have to do a broader based application rather than a truck mounted application. At the time we were looking at this last application, the metro average was 247, but there were various areas, pockets in Moorhead and Fargo that were in, you know, several hundred, 8 to 900. That's the target, that's what we were looking at the time, and that's kind of sets the decision-making process, the parameters of the decision-making process that we walk through. And then finally, the challenges with some of the migration of the monarch butterfly does coincide with the West Nile virus species of mosquito in that late July, August, early September timeframe. So that's setting the stage. That's where we were at when we went into the decision-making process. With that, I will turn it over to Ben Prather. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Mr. Prather, thank you for coming over here this evening and for giving us an update. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. The application on the 26th of August did follow all of our best management practices, as was noted by our technical advisor of the American Mosquito Control Association. It's my belief that it was completed without error and conducted in a manner that was consistent with state and federal laws. No violations have been issued and no regulatory documentation has been provided. Everything went to plan as we had previously used these applications, and unfortunate that there are non-target effects that are fully understood by applicators, chemical manufacturers, and our pilots as well. There are definitely some challenges when we're talking about area-wide control. We do have an expansive larval control program here in the city of Moorhead. However, that only extends out as far as the city limits. We're not able to access anything in rural Clay County like we are in rural Cass County. So that does provide some challenges to saying we need to do more larviciding. The state actually forbids us to do those kinds of things. But to the sake of, you know, the specific conditions, we had seen some places that had set new 10-year records. We had seen some places that had more mosquito biting challenges on the 26th of August than they had experienced in the past 4, 5, 6, 10 years, as I mentioned. So truly a major challenge that also lined up very closely with when our peak West Nile transmission really does occur. Typically middle of July through late August is when we start seeing spikes in those particular species of mosquitoes that are capable of transmitting that pathogen specifically. And this particular application was designed really to try and take the best shot at both of those. I provided some documentation of some of the trap data that we provide on a daily basis for the city of Moorhead that indicated that we were at peak when it comes to our vector surveillance number of those types of mosquitoes in our basic nuisance trap. So at that time, we felt that aerial was a prudent application. We have lots of summer left after the 26th of August typically, and certainly the decisions aren't made lightly. A group of, I don't know how many, Steve, are involved in these decisions. My email chains end up being into the dozens of people, and with this particular event, the folks at the American Mosquito Control Association, the chemical manufacturers, and the folks with PhDs that have done this research are really unclear at what the cause was. I'm more than happy to take sole responsibility of this, but I am getting tapped from very high levels all the way up to the Centers of Disease Control to say, we need to maybe look at this more closely. I've always been steadfast in my acknowledgement that we have non-target effects that do occur because I can't prove the negative in that scenario. But when it comes to this monarch situation, it's certainly something, definitely hit some nerves, and we're looking closely at, future engagement with citizens, and of course, additionally, potentially taking a look at, additional steps while maintaining public safety, public health, and the expectations of our citizens. And for the sake of time, I'll end my statements with that, and we can probably get to the questions.
Thank you. Really appreciate that, that update. So what we'll do is we will give council the opportunity to ask questions at this time. I'm just waiting to see if the hands pop up. So far we've got 2. What I would like to do, council, because we've also, I'm observing that there are 3 other people who have called in to speak as well. But I'll end this, just so for those at home that are watching, this will be an ongoing conversation. Obviously, there will be some discussion that will take place for the future. So my point is that I think we're not going to have all the questions and a resolution this evening. So again, we have information, we're going to process it. So what I would like to do is probably put a 15-minute timer for council. And then we'll begin with the questions. I want to be sure everybody has an opportunity to be heard from council, and we'll move on to the calls. Councilmember Dahlquist and Councilmember Durand.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Prather and Steve. I really appreciate you coming in, answering questions. I guess what I just want to say is we talked about this a year ago, and we do have options, and so I think it's good that we can talk about this and decide how we're going to handle it in the next year. So thank you so much for coming in, answering some questions, and I'm just hopeful that we can talk and find some solutions. It's just that when you can actually see the monarch butterflies, it makes a difference from us saying, I know that there are other pollinators that are dying when things get sprayed. And so I just want us to take this opportunity, and we have time before next year to decide what we're going to do. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Dahlquist. Councilmember Durand.
I have been opposed to aerial spraying for years, and I just want to go on the record as saying that. It's considered by many metropolitan areas to be an archaic form of mosquito control. I really would like to know how much research is spent on alternative methods. I'd like to know how many metropolitan areas even use aerial spraying. How often do we look to alternative methods? And looking down at the metro area, Minneapolis, St. Paul, where there are hundreds, if not thousands, of lakes and sloughs and bogs, yet they don't use any aerial spraying. I don't understand how we have a river that is a moving current, and yet the metro area can have all these standing water sources, and they don't use aerial spraying. So why should we use aerial spraying? They use larvicide. They use bikes, and they go and they will smoke areas that are problematic. I hate that we had to see thousands of monarchs die, and who knows how many other pollinators, but I'm thankful that finally other people are paying attention to this, and that we don't need to rely on aerial spraying. And I'm not an expert, I understand that, but when you look at areas like Chicago and Minneapolis, St. Paul, and where they're not using any aerial spraying, and they have large bodies of water that they're dealing with, how is it that we can't keep up with the times? And I don't know how the state forbids larvicide. Mr. Prather, you commented that the state forbids larvicide.
Can I take a second to answer that specifically?
Yes, please, because I don't get that.
We have a massive actual larviciding program, both in Cass and Clay County. Where we can't larvicide is outside of the city of Moorhead territorial limits. That is just the requirement of the Department of Agriculture that was placed on us, given our pesticide licenses state the city of Moorhead, and we don't have jurisdiction to cross over property lines.
Wouldn't it perhaps be something that we should look into, is resolving that issue so that we can?
Yeah, absolutely.
Areas?
Yeah, absolutely. I think is worthwhile to look at additional methods.
We have to look at other methods, other than aerial spraying. We're not surrounded by lakes. We're not surrounded by bogs and sloughs. We have a river. Like I said, is a flowing river. It's not standing still. There has to be other ways. And if there are state statutes or if there's a jurisdiction issue, we should be able to fix that, remedy that, and use much more sustainable methods than aerial spraying. And not just for pollinator issues, but personal issues. I don't want my yard sprayed with chemicals. I don't know what's in them. I'll take personal responsibility for mosquito control for myself, my family, my yard. I think it's maybe an overstep, and we're assuming everybody wants aerial spraying where I don't think that's a step that we should take. And I know, Steve Moore, you know how I feel about this. I thank you for all your work. And Mr. Prather, I thank you for all your work, in trying to keep us safe from mosquito-borne illnesses. But it's time that we look to other methods and give up this archaic practice of aerial spraying. And I'll end with that.
Thank you, Councilmember Durand. Councilmember Lindos, White, and Watson-Curry, and there's 9 minutes and 20 seconds left, FYI.
Thank you, Mayor Judd. Okay, so I was going to say that I was going to propose this after I'd heard more of the public input. But this is a complex issue, as Steve Moore and Ben Prather both noted, that there's a public comfort, there's public health, which goes both from vector-borne diseases, but also from, essentially, ecosystem services and sensitivity to chemicals. So, it's a complex problem, and I'm not going to attempt to solve that in less than 9 minutes or 3 minutes, just to give other people a chance to talk. So I would like to ask if, full disclosure, I've talked to Ben Prather before, and we had a good conversation about setting up a working group composed of both public health professionals, scientists, biology or ecologists in particular, and appropriate city staff and community residents to study this issue, identify the parameters, and gather public input to develop a set of recommendations for consideration. And so I think that's really what I would like to put forth is for the outcome of this. So I'll take input. That's it.
Thank you, Councilmember Lindos. Councilmember White.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Mr. Prather. I do appreciate that this is a complicated issue. First thing I'll say is Councilmember Lindos just made the recommendation that I wanted to make the same recommendation. I think that's the direction we should go. And Mr. Prather, you mentioned additional steps that we could take, and I just thought if we wanted an opportunity to touch on some of those, it would be valuable to hear more on that. Thank you.
Well, I think, yeah, definitely, and I appreciate your question. Certainly there are, available trade-offs that can be proposed. But of course, that is always going to be a trade-off, either in efficacy of the program, how effective we're able to be. We've always felt that aerial has been a large component of our success, given the overwhelming numbers of mosquitoes that we've had. But additionally, there are different items when we're looking at maybe, just doing better job consulting with specifically the butterfly migration type scenario. That's a big ask, I think, for me, given that that is our peak period. We did put out notifications and all these other press releases in the days and even weeks leading up to it, and certainly we didn't hear anything until it was all over. So definitely something to be studied. Of course, we do want to do some efficacy studies on whether, with some cage studies to see non-target effects. We're going to look at that. Our American Mosquito Control Association, and of course, our pesticide vendors are looking into this as well as U.S. Fish and Wildlife has some hearings scheduled coming up on the status of critically endangered monarchs. So definitely not the end of this discussion.
Thank you, Councilmember White. Councilmember Watson Curry, we have 6 minutes left. Plenty of time.
Phew. Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Mr. Feather. I know we've had you present before, and I'd like to highlight that you yourself, I believe, are a biologist, correct?
That is correct, yep. I've got a PhD, but I've been doing mosquito control. This is 11 years as director here and 14 years overall.
Yeah, thank you. One question I had was, I know there is a number, I myself was not in town during the spring. I was still in the valley and experienced it in mosquito treatment in another area, but there are some investigations underway, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm just curious the status of that. I believe it was the North Dakota Environmental Quality and the Department of Ag.
Yeah, North Dakota.
How the results will be shared.
Yeah, to my understanding, there are 3 open investigations: North Dakota Department of Ag, Minnesota Department of Ag, and the North Dakota Department of Environmental Quality all have items pending. To this point, I have not heard anything, but my expectation is that everything was done to specification, everything was performed perfectly for that application. So I expect no violations or any citations along that front.
Thank you. And then just one comment too. I know there's always a different variation in philosophy too. When I think about, chemical treatment for, I'll use Russian thistles, for example, or dandelions, is that those are frequently something that our Public Works Department get a number of calls for treatment, but there has been a cultural shift to some degree as well to be a little bit more forgiving about that sort of landscaping, or even the work that we've done with Audubon Society to transform some of our areas to more native plants. And so it's a cultural shift, but I think it's also that conversation about prolonging the life and livelihood of our planet for future generations. And so I definitely have those concerns for the health of our environment. I appreciate the proposal that Steve discussed to Councilmember Lindas, because I do think it is very complex, and I do respect that there is a health issue woven into all of this, and also have family and friends who are very responsive to mosquito bites too, and so it makes it very, very uncomfortable, if not painful, to sometimes be outside. So I know there's a lot to balance, but I really want to have that long-term thought about our environment in mind as a Green Step city, and as maybe pursuing some more pollinator-friendly actions. I think we need to really be thinking more long-term beyond just our own personal comfort. Did I use up all 6 minutes, Mayor?
Well,
I'm done. I'll mute.
Well, Councilmember Seljevold's hands up, so we got about 2:45 left. So not bad. Councilmember Seljevold.
I want to be very quick. Could Moorhead pull out of the aerial spraying component of this mosquito control?
Councilmember Lindas, it's faster. Yes, we have separate contracts. We could, if that was a collective decision to pull out of that aerial contract, we could do so, but I would encourage public input on that side, because based on my experience over the last 6 years, calls for, thank you, Ben, calls for aerial spraying, I would gather, although I didn't collect statistically, is, 20 to 30 to 1 over not doing it. So it's something that we could definitely look at, but we would really, maybe that's part of the working group where we collect the input of folks on what they feel would be the impact of that, because that would be probably met with much resistance.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. So folks, we have about 1:25 left. I'm going to defer to people who have not had a chance to speak. Councilmember Carlson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I will be quick. I do think that there are some pretty passionate people on both sides of this issue. And I think that a work group like Councilmember Lindas has proposed would be an excellent next step to really study this and gather more information. And like Mr. Moore stated, getting that public input I think is going to be extremely vital. I've heard from a number of individuals that have actually been more on the pro side of spraying due to the fact they have younger children that are very affected by mosquito bites. So, but as we all received the numerous emails from citizens in the city that are very passionate against not spraying. So I think the work group to really take some time and look at all of this and get public input would be an exceptional next step.
Thank you, Councilmember Carlson. Councilmember Hendrickson, we have about 22 seconds left.
I want to thank you all for giving me a lot of time here. With this work group, I mean, would we involve Fargo with it? Just throwing that question out there.
Well, I'm sure my vector control board would be interested in whatever outcome would come from that, but obviously with the multi-jurisdictional program that we have set up, it's a diverse group of folks that would be involved and interested in any decision that was made. But certainly Moorhead, you folks have your own counsel and your own direction if necessary.
And I just want to say one more thing, Mr. Mayor. I'm in agreement. If people, I've heard more about mosquitoes not being killed with this latest spray than being killed, and I haven't.
I might have lost you there, sir.
I think we lost Councilmember Hendrickson. Oh, yeah. And yes, and the 19 or 22 seconds were up. So
to address that specifically,
please.
So looking at our standard nuisance traps that we collect daily in the city of Moorhead, we did see a reduction, just not a complete, annihilation. So you can look at over our historical averages. Maybe we didn't get as good of a kill as we'd had in the past, but that just shows you the extent of the problem that we were dealing with. Again, this was all based upon a 4-inch rainfall event that occurred on the 14th of August that was just south of Fargo and Moorhead city limits. So it ended up being a rather large rain event for this region and caused a significant problem that, in all honesty, we had plans to go out and spray that following Monday. But given the uproar, I took it on my own ambition to wait and see how things settled out over the next couple of days, particularly with 3 pending investigations. So yes, traps were not as good as we would have liked in the week thereafter, but I had some safety concerns for both the pilot and my staff.
Okay. Thank you. I think, and folks, I want to reiterate, because I know, again, there's passionate views on both sides. Council has received emails since the date that the incident took place up until today. Again, this is an informational session to give Mr. Moore, Mr. Prather, is it Prather or Prather? I'm sorry.
Prather, but Prather's
Prather. Well, I want to make sure I get your, because I'm Judd, not Jude.
Okay,
So
I appreciate that.
I want to make sure I get it right. So I want to make sure that, folks at home know that this is an ongoing discussion. Members of council have discussed the wish to have a work group task force, not sure what we're going to label it, to work, either coincide with the cross-jurisdiction component. I think the biggest thing we want to make sure is that as we're asking these questions, we're asking objective questions in a civil and strategic manner. So there will be more conversation. We're not going to get it resolved tonight, but for the essence of time and keeping the meeting going, that's where we're at. Now, I do have 3 individuals that have been waiting patiently for this topic. So I do want to give them an opportunity to be heard. Again, and I just wanted to make a note as we move forward, if I wasn't clear earlier, there will be community input and individuals within the community that we will be looking at as well. So it's not just going to be council, this will be a community conversation. I want to make sure that that's cleared up as well. But I want to give 3 minutes to the folks that have been waiting patiently to be heard. I know that we have received email communication from 2 out of the 3 individuals. So I'm going to ask the other individual that I do not know whether or not we've received any electronic communication. So we'll start with that individual first. Miss Sandra Halverson, are you still waiting online?
I'm still here.
Greatly. Thank you for your patience, and thank you for holding out on this topic. We know it is a very important topic in our community. What we'll do is if you can just state your name and then state your address, and then after you've got that, we will start your 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council. I have been cutting out a little bit, so I hope we don't get cut out here at all, but I just wanted to say that I have called several cities in Minnesota, and am I cutting out?
No, but can you state your address real quick, please?
Oh, I live in South Moorhead, and I would like to give you that privately if I could.
Not a problem.
Okay, thank you. I've called several cities in Minnesota, including Brainerd, Fergus Falls, Bemidji, Alexandra, Detroit Lake, and none of them spray pesticides. So that's a large portion of Minnesota. In St. Cloud, she said they spray their park sometimes, but not their city. And as we discussed, you were talking about metropolitan mosquito control around Minneapolis, and they cover 2,900 square miles in 7 counties, and they use mostly larvicide, and they spray occasionally with backpacks. And so they're very specific and targeted in what they're spraying. So anyway, what's the word? They're very diligent about finding little places of water. He told me one year that they will take a helicopter, and where there's a lot of empty tires, I suppose salvage yards, they'll go down and drop it into the tires where there's water. So it's a process that would take a lot of, I think, community work and work from vector control. So we do have a lot of cities that don't do what we do. And I guess I kind of like that way that the metropolitan people do it. Also, there is some new information now. It was in the December 30th, 2019 Journal of American Medical Association. It's the title, Association Between Pyrethroids and Insecticide and the Risks. And they did find some bad association. And that was in the Internal Medicine Department of JAMA. And also, I would like to ask, I know I won't get an answer now, but on labels for the insecticides that are listed by vector control that they use.
You have 30 seconds left, Ms. Halverson.
Okay, on those labels it says not to spray waterways because it's highly toxic to fish. So I I was hoping they could explain what I heard, that they do spray the river. And also, I want to make sure that Cass County Vector Control is thanked, because I know they are trying to protect us from disease. And I really want to thank them for looking at all the mosquitoes and finding which ones do and which ones don't and all of that. So I'm hoping we can find a happy medium.
I thank you for your positive comments. We do put an abundance of work into our larval control program. To your comments, into Metropolitan Mosquito Control District in the Twin Cities. I actually worked down there for 3 seasons, and at that time, I believe that program was a cost of in excess of $18 million. So they have a fleet of 6 or 7 helicopters that they contract for, and they are covering a huge expansive area with larvicide. So each area has its own challenges. You look outside of the Red River Valley in Minnesota and elsewhere, you're dealing with different types of soils. You're dealing with, to Councilwoman Durand's question of different spraying with different ponds and swamps and things. Generally, the more the diverse of the ecosystem, the more likely you're going to be seeing fish and tadpoles and stuff of that nature that are going to be natural predators. Mosquitoes don't like wave action on ponds and things of that nature. So those are inherently poor breeding sites under most scenarios. But specifically where we have drainage fields and ditches and things like that, really are ideal habitat for a large number of nuisance mosquitoes and unfortunately disease-carrying ones as well. So Mr. Moore has the City of Moorhead paperwork open here, and I think you could probably detail just the program costs for the last few years and some of the details specific to the funding mechanisms involved.
That's, a lot, we do, I think one of the things that, 80% of the manpower and the resources go towards the larvicide program. We're over 1,326 applications of larvicide have occurred this season. So it is very active, and that is the huge, important part of our program. I just wanted to, not debating any of the other comments, but I just want to make sure that folks understand that 80% of our program is the larvicide part of the program.
No, that's fine. Thank you. Sorry. No, that's fine. Thank you for the clarity points there. Again, I just have to give my periodic reminder, this is an informational session. So what we're doing is merely gathering information so the public can hear what's going on, and then there will be continued follow-up conversations on this topic, and we'll get out to the public how that's going to look. Thank you, Ms. Halverson, for your comments and for your question. What we'll do is now move on to the next caller, which I believe is Miss Patrice Delaney. Ms. Delaney, to the extent that you're comfortable, if you can just state your name and if you're comfortable, your address. We may have that, because I think you have, never mind your address, we do have that on an email that you emailed to the city. So if you wish to be heard, you can go ahead and start. Madam City Clerk, if you'll set for 3 minutes. And I'll give you a 30-second just notice that when your time is almost up.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, my name is Patrice Delaney. I'm a senior at MSUM studying ecology and evolution. Last fall, I worked with some other students and faculty to plant a pollinator garden on our campus. And I was waiting all summer to see a monarch, and I didn't see one until after the spraying, unfortunately. So that was very upsetting. But in addition to that, I'm also concerned about these mosquitoes evolving resistance to the pesticides. Because I was at the river only 2 weeks after the spraying, and there was mosquitoes everywhere. So I'm just wondering what vector control is going to do when there's no more pollinators left, because the spraying is killing them, and we only have pesticide-resistant mosquitoes left. what will you do to prevent that cycle from occurring?
Is that your question and your comments, Ms. Delaney? Do you have anything else to add?
I would also like to add that I've noticed that a lot of other residents in town have started planting pollinator gardens and things like that to specifically help pollinators. But with spraying events like this, it makes those efforts just a large waste of time. And I know that the city has also done some restorations in town, and it just seems to be counterproductive if spraying like this is allowed to kill indiscriminately.
Okay.
And I do appreciate and respect the work that vector control does, because I do understand the importance of preventing vector-borne diseases. So I did want to mention that.
No worries at all, and thank you for your comments. Did you, you still have a little bit more time left. Is that, did you wish to add anything further, or is that the end of your comments, a question?
That is the end, thank you.
Okay, no, thank you. Thank you for calling in. Thank you for your comments and for your question. We do appreciate that. I'm not sure if you're able to answer.
Yeah, I can take a stab at that. We do look, there are protocols to monitor for resistance in mosquito populations with the active ingredients that we're utilizing. As you well know, that there are at least a dozen different varieties of mosquitoes that are affecting us here in the city of Moorhead. And we're also seeing, primarily the resistant types of mosquitoes are really container type mosquitoes you hear about. The Zika mosquitoes, the Aedes aegypti, Aedes albopictus, that are really the ones that are developing these types of resistance. But in terms of what we see in our area, we're getting mingling of wild type mosquitoes, particularly when we have these big explosive events. So the gene pool is not, as bottlenecked as you might think when it comes to the mosquito reproductive, gene flow as we talk about in science. To the point of, I think folks just, they, really focusing on pollinators and that's a really good thing. That's something that, we definitely are not anti-pollinator, but with conditions as they were and as they have been from time to time, aerial spraying and ground fogging with adult control products is sometimes necessitated. It's not just our duty, it's our obligation. And I can quote all the times that they were spraying for Zika virus in Miami. I just read a report that they're spraying 550,000 acres in Michigan for eastern equine encephalitis, another mosquito-borne disease. Last year, they sprayed a similar amount of that acreage over rural areas in Michigan to protect. Eventually, there was 10 people who were infected and 6 passed away from that particularly lethal event. So there are massive mosquito spraying campaigns that are ongoing throughout the U.S., and they oftentimes have less protocol and principle and essentially the database that the logic that we're applying here with our stats and our traps. Sometimes it's a lot more shoot from the hip than what we do, but certainly it is we look at the resistance issue and we ultimately know that there is a negative effect on pollinators, but we're just one little, speck of sand on the beach here. There's thousands of areas that are hosting pollinators, and being in an urban area, there's a lot of things that can go wrong when you're dealing with pollinators.
Thank you, Mr. Prather, for your response. Again, thank you, Ms. Delaney, for calling in. Ms. Noelle Hardin, are you still there? And thank you for patiently waiting as well.
Yes, I am still here. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. And what we'll do is,
my
I think, if I may interject, I think we have your email and we have your address, so you're good to go, and we'll start your 3 minutes. And I'll give you a 30-second warning when the timer hits, so you're ready to go.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you as well to the City Council And absolutely, thank you to Mr. Moore, as well as, I think I heard it might be Dr. Prather, for your work in the community as well. I am so appreciative of this conversation tonight and that everyone is really showing up, I believe, with the intent to look deeply at this issue and to look for solutions. So I am not going to rehash my letter from August 27th. I will just emphasize that it was not just monarchs that were affected by this, and I've definitely seen that in my own pollinator garden. But thinking about kind of thoughts and hopes for the future, we have so many different assets in the community that we can leverage to take a look at this issue. Dr. Prather, I think that you are one of those really important assets. I appreciate your openness that you showed last year with the City Council to look at this. And I think that the state-of-the-art surveillance system that we have with vector control is going to be a really important piece in this. We also have great resources in Minnesota. The Soil and Water Board is doing an event just this week on pollinators. Dr. Marla Spivak is one of the people I've been in touch with, a colleague at the University of Minnesota, an international expert on pollinators. And she indicated to me that there are many alternative ways of controlling mosquitoes that don't have the effect on pollinators. And of course, there isn't one single person who has the answer to complex problems. But I will say, if your number one tool is a hammer, everything is going to look like a nail. And if we have been using the same chemical for 10 years and are seeing 10-year all-time highs, I think we really do need to look more closely at the issue. I love the task force idea. I've been asking for that as well. I think that, as you've indicated, Mr. Moore, this is really complex. We need multifaceted solutions that bring together people with a lot of different perspectives and public input. What I'm really looking for tonight, which I didn't see in Fargo at the meeting last week, was a real commitment to explore alternatives, to keep researching this issue, to bring in our connections.
You have about 28 seconds, Noel. About 28 seconds, Ms. Harden. Yep.
Okay. I'm proud of our city leaders who serve on the Resilience Task Force, Green Step Cities, the Cass Place Food Commission. I think that this specific issue is a really great way to look at the practices and the policies that we've been learning about in those spaces and to come together and to make some change. So thank you very much, and I'm grateful to have the opportunity to speak tonight. Have a great evening, everyone.
And you as well, Ms. Harden. Thank you very much for your for calling in and for your comments. So, yes, Doctor.
Not doctor. No, for the record, not Dr. Prather yet.
So here's what I think we need to figure out, and I think I've only had a brief conversation, so again, showing up with the informational piece. Is currently Fargo or Cass County engaging in these community conversations?
Yeah, this is my third testimony in the past, 7 days. So I appeared in front of the Fargo City Commission last Monday and the Cass County Commission. Fargo City Commissioners were suggesting open houses and online forums, and I think this working group is a natural extension of that, of getting people down and talking through the factual basis, the scientific choices that we're making and when. So I'm slated to appear before the city of West Fargo this next Monday. So I've been brushing up on all of my mosquito lingo here. But certainly is a very dynamic, detailed conversation that we've been having and continuing to engage in.
Okay. Well, I think Mr. City Manager, Acting City Manager, I think what we probably will need to do is just have the jurisdictions and the multi-jurisdictional component have these conversations, because obviously, as you can see, we do have some residents, and as far as the council, that would like to have some input and be heard further in these conversations. So I think that might be the best way to do it, and I would just say engage with council members to see what we need to do in order to, what does that look like for Moorhead, and then how we engage with the other jurisdictions. What does that look like, and how should we proceed in that?
Absolutely. So Public Works Director Steve Moore and I have regular updates. We can check in on this and be in touch, and then also be in touch with Cass County Vector Control on what metro-wide, public meetings, dialogue looks like.
Yeah, and we do have a vector control board in the city of, from Cass County, of course, City of Fargo, City of West Fargo representatives. Mayor Tim Mahoney serves as the chairman. Dr. Joseph Reinhardt, who is an entomologist who works for NDSU, among other organizations across the river. And our latest member, he's PhD, and our latest member is Dr. Matthew Eaton, who is a dentist and a business owner in the city of Fargo, lives in West Fargo, but has a few published mosquito control research papers and knows the industry fairly well. Just went on to bigger and better things, I suppose. So there is civilian oversight over there. These aren't rogue actions taken under, purely by me. Policies and principles are, constructs of boards and men and women. So certainly those kinds of discussions do occur on a regular basis, and I fully expect that in the coming days and weeks.
Yeah, not a problem. I just want to make sure that it's clear. I think one of the takeaways from the conversations that more citizens want to be engaged, the council wants to be engaged moving forward. So whatever that looks like, as long as we know that that's the bottom line, just so we make sure that there's a fair representation of folks from the city that are involved in these conversations, and there's citizen input that's diverse and cross lines. That would be, I think, what we're looking for. So,
Mayor Judd, if I could
please
add, and I do appreciate it. It's nice hearing some of the comments from the folks that called in. So I appreciate that, because it's helpful to hear telephone conversations are constructive telephone conversations. You can gain a lot from that versus an email. So I'd like to thank those folks for calling in and waiting a long time to talk. One of the things, if we create the task force, what I asked from the council members is for some assistance when we do this, that we, we're going to need some clear-cut objectives, and we're going to need some, desired outcomes identified as we build the group, so we come in with some structure and focus, because, as you know, on a passionate item, you have to have some plans and structures to those task force meetings to be productive. So I just asked for some assistance from our council members on helping me with that.
No, absolutely. And I don't want to throw out the task force language, because again, what it looks like is, if we already have, my understanding is we're already engaging in these conversations in the metro area. So I just want to make sure that we have clear Moorhead representation based on the citizen feedback that we've had. I don't know if it looks like we're looking like we need a task force within our own when we already have a bigger conversation going on. But I just want to make sure that sitting at the table, if we're having a regional conversation, that there's enough Moorhead voices sitting there, so that we have the ability to be heard and that the voices are heard.
Very
Just
good.
Based on. Yeah.
Very good. Yeah, thanks for clarifying that,
Yeah.
Mayor Judd.
Yeah. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. So with that, thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Prather, for being here this evening. I know we do appreciate your work, but I think it's good for the residents to hear from you in your office, about what happened, because obviously we received a lot of feedback.
As did I.
As everyone has. And so I want to make sure that we are just on the same page, that Moorhead wants to be heard as far as, moving forward, what does this look like, one of the, the bottom line objectives. So.
Sure. Greatly appreciated. Thank you, council.
No, thank you. Appreciate you being here. Thank you, Mr. Moore. Hi, folks. Thank you for all who have sent emails on either side of this issue. Please continue to be engaged. Please continue to reach out to council members, as well as staff but just make sure that you have the opportunity to be heard. If we don't get back to you right away, we're still gathering information, and we'll keep the public engaged as far as what we're hearing and feedback on this very important item. So moving forward, item number 18 is our 2021 preliminary budget and tax levy presentation. Acting City Manager Dan Molly.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members. So we're here to present the draft 2020 budget with you tonight. Our goal is to present this to you 2 weeks ahead of your having to vote on it, so we can share it with the public. You can ask any questions. It's out there. By statute, we're required to approve a preliminary budget and levy by the end of this month, and then we can continue to review and meet, and then approve a final budget in December. But we can't, on the preliminary budget that's approved at the end of this month, we can't go any higher than the levy that's approved, but we can lower it. So big picture here, our goal in the 2021 budget was to maintain essential services, to take care of our workforce, and to ensure that we have a balanced budget, which we have accomplished this year under incredibly challenging conditions, without a significant tax rate increase, as you'll see, and without rating reserves. So I'll be honest with you, this is where Moorhead shines because of how it's made up, and you'll see that in the presentation very shortly. We, just so you know, we asked department directors to help, and they did. They stepped up. We asked them, if you don't need it this year, don't ask. We asked that operating expenditures be cut where possible, 2% advised overall. We asked that capital purchases be reduced or extended in their useful lives by 1 year. And I also want to add that we have 5 union negotiations coming up this fall, and they played a large role in wage and benefit estimates. And so this has been a team effort, and we're grateful for that. We're grateful that we have the opportunity to get it ahead of you tonight. I also want to recognize our finance director, Carla McCall, and our finance team for their work on the budget that you're going to see now. So I'll hand it over to you, Carla.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council, and citizens viewing at home. We'll work today on presenting the preliminary 2021 budget and the proposed tax levy for 2021. So part of the effects what things affect the tax levy and the tax rate, we have expenditures on one side with the wage benefits of existing employees, debt service for existing bonds, contributions to other agencies, operating costs of the tax levied activities such as general fund, park fund, economic development. And we have on the other side revenues. We have a minor increase in the LGA, which is a local government aid. We have some, we could look at fee increases for revenues, and we adjust revenues based on the actual projected receipts, increase of transfers from utility funds, and of course that equates down to property values, the increase in individual properties, new construction, added value, and any exemption and rebates that will play into that role. For information, the major sources of revenue for the general fund, property taxes make up 30% of the general fund revenues, and 74% of the property taxes are paid by residential use properties. 27% of general fund revenues are generated from transfers from utilities, and of those transfers, 83% is from our electric utility. 22% of the general fund revenues is made up of local government aid. And as noted, there's a minor increase of $31,779 anticipated in 2021. All other sources of revenue for the general fund make up the remaining 21%. And that includes such items as federal, state, grants, fees, and charges. The operating costs for tax levied funds, we need to look at to set that tax levy. So there's only a few funds that affect the tax levy and the tax rate. Those are the general fund, debt service funds, mass transit, library, and the EDA. Operating costs for all levied funds were reduced where possible by all departments. And a cost of living adjustment for employees has been considered in the options for the 2021 preliminary budget. Health insurance premiums were anticipated to increase by 10%, and the city was to share equally with the employees with a 50% share of the additional expense. The city levied $50,000 in 2020 to help address the expected increase in health insurance costs, and we will use that amount to offset the city's share of the increase in 2021. The EDA has a separate taxing authority from the city, and there is a statutory maximum that the EDA may levy. They are not at that maximum, and there is no proposed increase in the EDA levy from the existing 2020 amount. So that leads us to our market value and tax base growth. So for everyone's knowledge in the city, that it appears that our estimation that our tax levy or tax value and tax growth base is going to increase by $239,958. And again, that's made up of different components. That's added value of new improvements between residential, apartments, commercial, and that makes a total of 317. We have some market value adjustments where the same properties, they just were adjusted with the tax rate or value was adjusted. So there was some increase there in total. Exemptions that are expiring in 2020, that 48,000 is coming back on the taxes, and new exemptions that would reduce is 87,000. We have some rebates that are expiring at 67, and then some additional rebates going on of 130. So that's what generates what we anticipate seeing as an increase in our market value. And at the current tax rate, the 2020 tax rate, we would anticipate that generating 239,000. So that's a reduction from the 2020 tax base. We looked at an increase there last year of 321,000. This year, we're looking at 239, so a little bit lower than last year. So the proposed tax levy and tax rate. So what is the difference between that, the tax levy and the tax rate? The tax levy are the dollars that the city would be needing to balance our budgets. So the increase in the actual dollar amount, the tax levy, we would need to increase that by 310,000 to the new number, which we would be proposing for 2021 of $15,819,537. That is a 2% increase, that 310,000. But the tax rate is taking those dollars and dividing it by your tax base, and that becomes a tax rate. And because we're seeing an increase, a slight increase in the tax base, that helps to reduce, and that's going to create an increase in the tax rate of 0.45%. That 2% increase in the actual dollars levied will capture that growth of the 239 that we discussed earlier, plus an additional $70,229. With that amount, we have a balanced 2021 budget. So again, that's the growth component, new market value, plus an additional amount to come up with our new tax levy total amount. And as noted by Acting City Manager Dan Molly, the preliminary tax levy cannot be increased when we set the final budget in December, but it can be reduced if we decide that we have other sources of revenue or something would offset our need for these dollars. So we can reduce that in December if needed. The tax rates are calculated again by dividing the total amount of the levy by the total tax capacity. So the city's tax capacity anticipated in 2021 is $35,106,100. So we take the total dollars and divide it by that. We would talk about a tax rate of 0.45062. This chart here provides some history of the tax rate for the past 6 years, along with the proposed 2021 tax rate. And this tax rate of 0.4562 is with a 2% tax levy, which increased that dollar amount. So this is where the rates have been in the past few years. And between current year and the proposed 2021, that's a 0.45% increase, that increase itself. The average tax rate is shown in this slide, and over the past 6 years, that average has been 3.03%. An increase in the tax rate in 2021 of the 0.45% is well below the average by 2.58%, which is 85% lower than the average of 3.03. So we're well below the average increase. And an increase in the tax rate in 2021 of the 0.45% is going to again generate approximately $310,000, which is the captured growth and additional revenue, as mentioned earlier. So with the new tax rate, or the reduced tax rate in 2021, that would put the 7-year average down at 2.66. So we're actually bringing the average rate down over time. How is the tax rate going to impact properties in the city? Commercial, industrial, and utility properties in Moorhead receive what's called a disparity reduction credit that caps their property tax obligation at 1.6% of their taxable market value when computing their annual tax bill. That is all inclusive of their county tax, school tax, city tax, and other taxing jurisdictions, EDA and other bodies. So the State Department of Revenue will then contribute the remainder to the city as a reimbursement for the reduction in tax revenues. So this legislation was enacted to provide equalization to the cost of doing business in border cities. These properties are only going to see a change in their property tax bill if there was an increase or a decrease in their market value. If there is no change in their market value from this year to next year, those commercial, industrial, and utility properties are not going to be impacted by a tax rate increase. The effect of that would be more of a payment from the state of Minnesota, the higher payment. So for an example, if a commercial property was valued at $500,000, the tax capacity then would be computed at $9,250. The current tax rate of the 44862 would provide a gross tax of $4,150. Now the disparity credit, the way that they compute that, we'll go over here real quick. The market value of $500,000 at the disparity rate of 1.6% says that the maximum that property would have to pay in taxes, all inclusive, would be $8,000. Anything over $8,000, the state's going to pay. And then we estimate that the city's share, at least the current share, is about 34%. So if we take 34% of their maximum amount, the city would be able to get $2,720 from that commercial business. So we go back over here, if we needed $4,150 at the tax rate, the owner's only going to pay the $2,720, and the remainder is going to be paid by the state through the disparity reduction credit. So just to demonstrate, if we were to go up by 0.45% in our tax rate, again, the computation is their tax capacity. Now the higher the new tax rate means they would be generating a higher gross tax, $4,168, but again, because of the disparity reduction credit, they only have to pay that $2,720. So their taxes will not go up, but the amount paid by the state would make up that difference in the new tax. Also in that category are the apartment properties. The apartment complexes are categorized as commercial properties. They'll receive the benefit of the disparity credit if the tax rate exceeds the 1.6%. Currently, the gross tax rate has exceeded 1.6, it's 1.86% on those properties. So the market values range anywhere as a low of 132,600, which is a 4-unit apartment complex, to 11,271,000, which is one in the city that has 133 units. So there's a large range of values, market values of apartments in the city. So that just demonstrates the low and the high. If we do a computation of the median, the actual median market value for apartments is 610,000. That tax capacity would be 7,600. Current tax rate 448. So their gross tax would be 3425. But when you do the disparity credit computation, the 1.6%, the maximum is 9,700. City share 3322. So over here again, at 3322, the state would be paying $103 this year for that apartment complex at 610,000. So if we increase the tax rate, again, we go through the same computation, and the tax that the owner will pay is going to remain the same. The only one that'll see an increase on that side would be the state through that disparity credit program, and they'd pay $118,000. So if we just jumped up and threw a $5 million apartment complex in the mix, just to demonstrate, their max would be $27,200. They currently would be paying that amount, and the state would be picking up $839. And if we do the increase that we're proposing, they would stay the same. The owner would pay the same $27,200, and the state would pick up the additional, and that would become $964. What is the impact to residential taxpayers? The median home value of a home in Moorhead is $185,900. There is a homestead credit that reduces off of the value, the taxable market value, brings that to $164. The class rate for residential homes is 1% or 0.01. So the tax capacity is $1,640. If we had no tax rate increase from this year, of course, there would be no increase in their tax bill. Based on per the proposal, we would see a tax rate increase of 0.45, which is the 2% tax levy increase. And through the computations here, we go back down here, the change in the tax rate of 0.20004, we would see an expected increase in the annual tax bill of $3.28, or a monthly amount of about 27 cents a month for a home valued at $185,900. Again, we should note that the taxpayers can see an increase in their tax bill, but that was only going to be based on an increase in the market value of their property due to market adjustments or added improvements. If everything else was to stay equal, they would see an annual increase of $3.28. We'll do that. I have that slide for the same computation for a residential home property of $300,000. Again, nothing if we didn't do a tax rate. If we do the proposed 0.45, the anticipated annual tax bill increase is $5.79, with that being a monthly increase of about 48 cents a month for a home valued at $300,000. We also provided and completed a 5-year capital improvement plan for years 2021 through 2025. And it includes all projects and purchases over $5,000 for each purchase or project, for each item. There's a separate fund, we call our fund 415, that houses the capital improvement projects and purchases for all the governmental funds. The capital spending for utility projects are run through those enterprise funds. The capital improvement fund has a reserve that it's not part of the general fund and may be used to plan for future purchases or projects. And the two main sources of funding are transfers from the electric utility and the water utility. So the 2021 capital budget included in the 5-year capital improvement plan has a total of $20,975,000 approximate spending. There is a full capital improvement plan that will be made available to the public on our website when it has been approved in its final form in December, along with the budget. So the final process for the budget would be a meeting on September 28th where the City Council will approve the preliminary tax levy. And then during the months of October through December, there will be a continued review of the enterprise funds, a few more budget work sessions, and we will discuss those funds and any fees that would need to be changed in the enterprise funds. And on December 14th, the final tax levy and budget will be approved by the City Council at their regular scheduled council meeting. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions that might come up or any clarification that the council may like me to make.
Well, thank you, Director McCall. We really appreciate the hard work you've put into this and the research and the time for sure. Does that bring about any questions for council? Okay. Assistant City Manager Molly, any other things to add?
Nope, other than thank you for working with us on it. If there's any other questions, let us know within the next couple weeks, and we'll be back in 2 weeks to ask for approval of the preliminary budget.
Well, thank you. And for folks at home, I want to send a shout out to our city staff for putting this together. A lot of hard work. Also to the ELT, working with Acting City Manager Molly. Again, really making some sacrifices in order to keep things moving forward with our budget. For folks at home, also that we're looking out for 2022. The understanding that I'm receiving from St. Paul as well as from Washington due to the uncertainties with COVID-19. And with the council, we felt like there is the potential for needing an increase, but also being sensitive to what's going on in our community, we felt like this is the best course of action at this time. Please send any feedback to council and myself. Thank you. With that moves us to item number 22 on the agenda items, mayor and council reports. Any council members wish to make any reports at this time? Councilmember Carlson, your hand is up, and then after you, Councilmember Lindos and Watson Curry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Still there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I froze for a second there. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just two things I wanted to note. Moorhead Public Library is going to have a shred-a-thon actually next week, September 14th through the 19th. Community members are invited to bring documents to the library during operating hours to help shred personal and business documents. It's a fundraiser, so it's going to be $5 per grocery bag, but I think during this time of all of us spending a lot of time at our home, I know that a lot of people are purging and organizing and decluttering, so if you want to get rid of those personal business documents, this would be a great way to do it and also be able to donate to our library. Also, wanted to bring up with the CARES grants and some of the businesses who may need a notary, the library does provide that notary service. So if you aren't able to get to a bank during those banking hours, the library would be a good second option. That's all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Not a problem. Thank you, Councilmember Carlson, for the updates. Councilmember Lindos?
Thank you, Mayor. And I'm probably stealing part of Councilmember Watson-Curry's good news stuff, but I'll let her fill in the stuff that I forget or don't do well enough. But Councilmember White and Watson-Curry and myself attended the recent Metro bus, or Met Bus, I should say MetroCog had a presentation there. And there's really cool things going on with the downtown transfer station. There's going to be an open house there. And I think from everything that was presented, there's some really nice improvements that have been made. Along with that, people are very much invited to give feedback about MapBus. They're doing a MetroCog survey, and in particular, there's a really cool wiki map that you can suggest alternative routes or new routes that you'd like. And so I would encourage people when they're looking at alternative transportation options to give feedback. So if you are riding MapBus a lot, please give feedback. But if you don't, and you say, "Gosh, I think I would ride it if only," give that feedback as well. And I think that's the only thing I had to say.
Thank you for the update, Councilmember Lindos. Councilmember Watson-Curry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councilmember Lindos, for the update on MapBus. It was well done. Also that same day, so September 9th, there was also the Cass Clay Food Commission met, and we had a few presentations as far as what had been happening with our food systems in times of COVID-19. We did also talk about the possibility of accepting a paper on pesticides within school areas, and didn't take any action on that yet, so we'll discuss that again. And also there was conversation about a breakout, essentially a little bit a task force to discuss pesticide application, as it's been such a hot topic as well. So no action on that. Looking holistically on that, as we're obviously in a large agricultural area, so there were some concerns brought forward on that. One thing I did, a community activity that I just wanted to uplift, the Village Family Services is offering a walk-in mental health clinic for Clay County residents. And it's Wednesdays from 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. starting in September through December 9th. So just knowing that we have a long road ahead of us in this world of COVID-19 modifications, mental health is one of those foundations that we really need to take care of. So encourage folks to reach out to the village if they have more questions for that free walk-in mental health clinic. So it's a first step if you're having some concerns and you want to take care of yourself and those around you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Watson-Curry. Councilmember White.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to thank our city staff for all the great work they've done on Greater Moorhead Days. I know that this is a different way of celebrating than we have in the past, and I appreciate the creative ideas that they've come up with. And for folks, if you haven't had a chance to go out and enjoy some of those, I hope that you'll take the opportunity to do so. One of the things that we did today is we had the ribbon cutting at our newest dog park in South Moorhead at River Oaks Point. And so if you have a furry friend that you can take down there to have fun, it's a great location. I also wanted to mention one specific event that many people may not be aware of, and that is the Red River Run. And it's near and dear to my heart because I love any opportunity to get out and run along our trails along the river. And normally this would be a race. It would have been the 41st annual Red River Run, and they're doing it virtually this year, and it's part of Greater Moorhead Days. And really, it's a pick your own route, or you can have them pick a route for you. But if you want to run along the Red River, either a 5K or a 15K, and just post your selfie, it's Lake Agassiz Pacers, and they're no cost, and they're just giving out prize just to get people out enjoying the outdoors and celebrating our beautiful Red River.
Councilmember White, when is the date on that? Or
It's going on right now.
when right now? Okay, great, thank you.
Any day, yep, you can pick your time, and again, we have we've put together some proposed routes, but really, you can come up with your own route and just post a selfie of yourself. There's, right next to the park, across on the trail near the Moorhead Center Mall parking ramp, there is the sign for Lake Agassiz Pacers. You can take a picture by there, or just one of the many beautiful places that we have on the river trails.
Great, thank you for the update. Any other reports from council? Okay, and I'll be brief. Pretty much I just want to lift up our council as well as the city staff for putting together the work on coming up with the preliminary budget. A lot of hours, a lot of good, robust discussion to put out this proposal to the residents. Also, still meeting with the Minnesota Mayors Together executive group. Commissioner Grove was there, that'll be 2 Tuesdays ago because we met. We're going to meet tomorrow. Still looking at what's happening with Greater Minnesota regarding our economic development piece. What is this going to look like going into the cold weather months? Hopefully we'll have more of an update at the next council meeting, but we're still looking at what's going to happen regarding COVID-19 and what does it look like as our numbers continue to go up. So obviously I'll be reaching out to Mr. LaPoint and city staff about what that looks like as far as being able to advocate for our businesses out here in Moorhead, being that we're a border city as well. Also, we had a council candidate info meeting. Kudos to the city staff for putting that together, where the folks that are running for council in the city were put together some information about what is going on in our city to give them some background as they move forward through the election season. Also, I think of note, that might be all that I have at this point. So I'll pass it over to you, Mr. Molly.
Thank you, Mayor. So we had a really fun opening at River Oaks Point for the dog park. It is such a nice dog park, and it was great to see folks out there. I just encourage folks to check it out and to see these neat amenities that are just popping up along the river corridor in Moorhead. This one is really cool. Greater Moorhead Days, there's all kinds of stuff going on, so please check out the website. One thing to pick up is on Thursday, September 17th is going to be the virtual parade, and there are a lot of fun submissions. And thank you to all the different businesses, community organizations, groups, families that participated in making, and I think this is going to be something that's going to get a lot of clicks. It's going to be pretty cool. So thanks everybody for taking part in that. And finally, as part of the 2021 budget, we're looking to bring legal services in-house and intend to advertise the position of city attorney tomorrow. As you know, the city attorney handles all legal matters for the city. This includes civil and criminal matters and serves as general counsel to the mayor, to department directors, council, staff. You know, we have a unique opportunity here in Moorhead, given the success of the city's transitioning to a full-time prosecution office over the last couple years. Of particular benefit to Moorhead is the city's talented in-house lead prosecutor, Cheryl Dyson. And given these existing conditions, we believe it's the right time to engage in an in-house legal function here in Moorhead. And with that, I'd like to turn the microphone over to City Attorney John Shockley, whose record of service and commitment in Moorhead is just fantastic. And thank you, John, to add any comments that you may have.
Thank you, Dan. Yeah, and just to reflect what Acting City Manager Molly had indicated is, when we first brought the prosecution services in about 3 years ago now, the then city manager, Volkers, and myself foresaw that there would be a day when this would occur. And really that's due to a couple things. The civil services that the city attorney provides are about a 0.7 FTE. And throughout the years since the 1980s, the city has done that with outside counsel through my firm and ultimately through me. And at the time that all of the prosecution services were handled by Clay County, it really didn't make any sense for the city to consider any type of in-house legal services. With the creation of the city prosecution department, we foresaw there would be a need for somebody to cover part-time for prosecution services. If there are maternity leaves, people go on sick leave, people find different positions. And you just naturally, in an office like that, you're going to have times in which you need those coverage opportunities. And so we knew that there would be a day at which it made sense for the city to look at moving to in-house city civil services. Also, that coincides at the end of the year with our retainer expiring, and so it made sense to bring it forth to the city as kind of a good governance issue. I would say that from Moorhead's perspective, Minnesota is a little bit different than North Dakota cities. Minnesota has a higher number of regulations and statutory requirements that are imposed upon a city, so the city attorney functions are slightly different, where a city like Fargo may need less attorneys than a city like the city of Moorhead. And so working with originally with city manager Chris Volkers, and then with acting city manager Molly, we really formulated this plan. I would continue to provide backup services for the position through a far reduced retainer, and continue to provide the bond counsel services and really assist in that partnership for a transition to make this position successful. I've really enjoyed doing this work, so it has nothing to do with not enjoying it. It's just, it's one of those good governance things that's important, and it's really serves the interests of making sure that we're spending taxpayer funds appropriately for the position. And so we had, during some of the budget sessions, talked with the council about it. I'm very supportive of it, and just felt it was very important for any applicant that's looking for the position. This was something that we'd been contemplating and planning, and want to make sure the position is successful.
Thank you so much, John. You've been great to work with through this transition. And that's my report, Mayor.
Well, that's a crazy way to end, but he's not gone yet, so.
Perhaps I could include something. So built into the budget, I mean, there's history and context with Onstead Twitchell that is invaluable. So we found a way to make it work. I mean, really, we're trying to do this in the most efficient and streamlined way possible, but whereby we have some funds set aside to continue working with Onstead Twitchell on any historic background, context, agreements, and things like that. The work with Onstead Twitchell around bond work is fantastic. That's something that, a city attorney doesn't do. You contract out for that, so we'd want to maintain that relationship. And then, other areas that may present some opportunities. So we look forward to working with Onstead for quite some time.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Mr. Molly. All right, folks. Then that moves us to item number 24, executive session. And 24A, this will be a closed executive session pursuant to Minnesota Statute 13D.05, Subdivision 3, Paren C, Paren 3, for the purpose of developing offers or counter-offers for the sale of real property described as Clay County parcel number 589001758, having an abbreviated legal description of north half east quarter less 1.84 acres, section 28 township 139 range 048. And with that, is there a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Linda seconds.
Got it, Madam City Clerk?
Got it.
All right. If there's no further discussion, I'll ask for a roll call vote.
Dahlquist,
Yes.
Watson Curry,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Durand,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Seljavold,
Aye.
Hendrickson,
Aye.
Lindos.
Yes.
Motion carries. We are now in executive session. May I close the meeting, yeah? We good? Okay. Meeting is adjourned at 9:06 PM. Good night, Moorhead.